downhill, tight left turn, narrow street. Now they are racing. They're making their way slowly towards us now. Another 3 minutes before they join us. Quick step in the front, doing the hard work. Looks like Trek Segafredo's second wheel at the moment. To be very, very careful through the, you know, that is BMC second wheel. There's the Loco NL Jumbo team that is third wheel Movistar there, but it is Quick Step looking really good. There in numbers at the front of the race, the sharp end of the course. You want to get as many riders as possible in your team over the climb here in to get the points. This is very much a points race. Similar to criteria racing is a close course, and already we have riders exploding off the back of the bunch. Technical, twisty climbs. These are short little climbs. They're like punches to the kidneys. They really hurt you out of the saddle, punching that power through the pedals. Really, I believe we'll see the Loco NL Jumbo easily to the front over the climb pace in so, ladies and gentlemen, here they come from the Belgian side. They'll be coming and they're racing their way towards us. You can hear the helicopters of our TV crew. They're on the Valsenberg climb already. As they come towards us now, at the top of the Valsenberg, the 3 London punts. If you're looking towards the announcing trailer,
That is Camping Arts, isn't it?
Hello everyone, and sorry for the slightly delayed start to the inaugural Hammer Series race and live coverage right here on GCN. We will cut to the action very quickly indeed now, where they are already on the first lap of 11 in what is the Hammer Climb race, and we can tell you it has already been very frantic and very fast right from the very beginning. This is a brand new concept to be held in Limburg over the following 3 days. It's the climb today, the sprint tomorrow, which is of course on a much flatter course, and then the race will be decided on Sunday with a team time trial where the first team across the line wins the overall race.
Well, I mean, to talk about the Hammer Series, this is Hammer time straight away. We've seen an extremely fast pace set from the off, primarily by Quick Step. I've just seen a couple of riders, including Sepp van Mark, being punted out the back. Of course, this is the first time when they go through the line that they'll be awarded points. First 10 riders, remember, 10 points. Sorry, the first 10 riders will get points. And I think, Dan, this sort of style of racing has caught a lot of very, very big riders unawares. I'd have been, I don't know, to be a fly on the wall in the team meetings last night would have been something special. But interestingly, Tom Steele's one of the direct sportives for Quick Step Floors, if you didn't see the footage earlier on, actually said, there's no tactics, it's full gas, just race like you're a 16-year-old. But just look what's happening right now. It's split to pieces, and we're not even through the first lap.
Yeah, but as Si pointed out, although they said race like there is no tactics, they seem to have a tactic, Quick Step Floors today. They've had one rider on the front right from the very beginning of the race, and he has split things to pieces. And as you can see right now, there are already a number of riders in some serious trouble out there on the road. Let's not forget, there's only 5 riders per team, so a total of 80 riders on the road. Each team gets to pick from a selection of 7 for each of the day's racing. So as you can see, a select group at the front of only about 20 riders with just about 1 lap done almost. They're about to come to the top of the first climb, where, as Matt said, there will be points for the first 10 riders across the line. No one knew what to expect on today's race. I think they were probably already all expecting quite a hard race from the gun. Very interesting, Matt, to see that Caleb Ewan is up here for Team Orica Scott on the climb stage.
Yeah, Caleb looking very, very strong. There's probably about 25 riders in that front group. Tom de Moulin, of course, riding on home soil. The Butterfly of Maastricht, as he is known, has just made it across to that front group at a really ferocious pace being set by BMC, and Daniel Oss now on the front.
Yeah, Daniel Oss there, and also Stefan Kung, the Swiss rider, in 4th place. And if you can get 2 riders in the top 10, as Orica Scott look like they might well do as well, with Caleb Ewan and one of his teammates, that's really going to put them in prime position then after 1 lap of the race. So there's your first 10 riders going through now. We'll get the graphics up very shortly to see what the order was as they came across the line. and it will keep you updated, of course, in where the positions of the teams are as we go through this race as well, because of course this series, this 3 days, is all about the team and not about the individual riders.
Yeah, well, we'll get confirmation through, as you said, Dan, that looked like it was Daniel Oss. He went early, went with about 150 metres to go, and I think from a tactical perspective he needs to be first or second into that hairpin bend, but I did see Orica Scott with 2 riders in the top 10, so they'll have got points, but remember, it's double points on offer on laps 3, 7 and 11, so I wonder if we're going to see a couple of teams backing off but really going hard on the laps where there's double points.
Yeah, it's a very interesting concept, isn't it, because this stage is only 78 kilometres in length, which is far shorter than you'd normally expect for any stage of any stage race or any one-day race really. Longer than a crit, shorter than a normal road stage. And it's going to be interesting to see who's able to do the chasing from behind. We've got Theo Gegenhardt here from Team Sky. You can see he's on the race radio, and that's going to be very important throughout today's race. Keeping in touch with the sports directors behind, telling them how many riders you've got in a group, because of course, in my mind, if you get a group growing away of 10 riders or so, and you've got 1 rider and there are other teams with 2, there's no reason really for you to contribute to the riding behind.
No, as I said, Theo Gegenhardt was riding through. It's a very different situation than riders are normally used to. I think the team with the most in that front group, and obviously the most again should this stay away for a little while, looks to me, well, it's 2 teams in fact. BMC have definitely 2 riders in there, and also Orica Scott have 2. I can see Lotto in there, also 2 from Quick Step Floors, as well as a rider from Cannondale.
Well, we've got a group of around 10 riders separating themselves from the rest of the race then, and as I said, it's going to be very interesting to see if anyone gets together behind that has missed this front split. Now, if we have a quick look down the start list from today, I'm trying to decide if there's anybody there from Lotto Soudal or Lotto NL Jumbo.
I think there's one rider from Lotto just riding about 7th or 8th. Well, I think he was the rider that was set second across the line, and as soon as we got confirmation of that sprint, we'll give it to you, because this will set up the narrative for the day. As the points come through, the Director Sportifs will have to readjust their strategy, look at what riders they want to start moving to the front, maybe consider what riders to save for the latter part of the race. But just look at what's happened already. This race is absolutely blown apart. It really is hammer time all round. Just remarkable. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, if you've just joined us, it's probably a good time now, although we won't get much respite looking at the action that we've already had. That's a reasonable gap, though, isn't it, to the next group down the road. But the concept of this series, Matt, so we have these 3 races. The first 2 are road races, where there are points available at the end of each lap. Today there are 11 laps, tomorrow it is 8 laps on a flatter circuit. And at the end of the day, you get bonus seconds, which count towards the final day chase, which is essentially a team time trial, where the team that's done the best in the first 2 stages will set off first, then 30 seconds behind, plus any bonus seconds that you've got, the second team will start after you, and so on and so forth, with reduced time gaps between each. Here are Team Sunweb. I have a feeling, Matt, that they have missed the first split today. We're still trying to get confirmations of all the names in the first group, but number 94 there, that is Albert Timmer, very experienced rider, but yeah, on the race radio, if you've got a problem today, Matt, in terms of mechanical, it's going to be extremely difficult to get back anywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, and as I say, we do see some races going from the gun, but I think Timmer has actually got a rear puncture there. Yeah, just removing his back wheel. This is the front group, BMC there. Look, one of the riders from Lotto, from Nippo Vini Fantini. I think at this point in the race, as we see this group of about 25 riders in front, it's worth looking at the composition of the field. There are 12 World Tour teams in the field. So Sunweb, Bahrain Merida, BMC, Cannondale Drapac, Orica Scott, Mobistar, Lotto Soudal, Lotto NL Jumbo, Quick Step Floors, Team Sky, Trek Segafredo and UAE Team Emirates. And they're joined by 4 invited pro-continental teams. And there's one of the riders in the break. There he is. That's a Nippo Vini Fantini in the orange. Another team clad in orange, the local team Roompot Netherlands Lottery. And then we have the Spanish squad in green, white and black, Caja Rural Seguros. And then the Israeli cycling squad also in the mix.
Well, Tom Dumoulin's managed to make it into this front group. He's got a teammate there for company as well. So great to see the recently crowned Giro d'Italia champion is not too tired after that 3 weeks of racing, which he's just had in Italy. I'm sure he relaxed ever so slightly and celebrated his win down there. And he was saying that he thought he might well suffer in the first hour of racing today. So it's great to see that he's up there with the front runners. The big winners in my mind at the moment, Matt, in this group, we look down there now, 3 riders in blue from Quick Step Floors. So Quick Step have got 3 riders. I can't see any other team with that strength and depth here at the moment. And in terms of picking up points, Let's just remind you, it's the first 10 riders across the finish line on each lap that pick up points. That's a very strong position that they've got themselves into already.
No, definitely, and it's Carlos Betancourt. We haven't seen him at the head of a race for a very long time, but Betancourt, a very strong, punchy rider. Remember, a couple of years back, came onto the scene, or burst onto the scene, in fact, with that fine win in Paris-Nice. Hasn't quite been the same rider, but actually Mobistar have got 3 riders in that move.
They have 2, have they?
It's Barbero is also in there, Betancourt. So, and just sat at the back there, as you said, that is Caleb Ewan, and a very punchy rider indeed. Fernando Gaviria is also in the field, but not racing today. I'll probably focus on tomorrow's sprint stage and maybe the team time trial. But so early on in this race, I'm quite surprised it's broken up so quickly. And it will be very interesting to see what the time gap is and whether everybody in this move, once they understand the composition of the group, starts to ride through.
Well, certainly Quick-Step Floors have got a big reason to ride, haven't they, with 3 riders in this group. And as soon as Mobistar, if you're right, Matt, and they've also got 3 riders in here, as soon as they realise that they've also got that strength in depth, you wouldn't be at all surprised to see them contributing to the work at the front and to make sure that this stays clear. Really would like to see a time gap as soon as possible, and also a view of the second group on the road to see if there's anybody that's actually doing a concerted chase or whether they're literally all over the road, because this does very much remind you of racing as a junior, doesn't it, where you're flat out from the gun. They had quite a long ride out from Sittard this morning to get to the start here in Vals, and they had a 0.9 kilometre neutralised section before the flag was dropped, and all hell let loose straight away, didn't it? It was Quick-Step Floors on the front immediately, and just one rider from their team. I think that was Yves Lampert, who was on the front for the first 5 or 6 kilometres, led them up to the last climb out of 2 on the stage, and from then on we've had this very select group.
We have, and this is the corner. If you've watched the race previews that have been online on Velon CC on Twitter and on Facebook, Robin McEwen has been riding the circuit, and this is a key point in the circuit in relation to positioning for the climb. And as we mentioned before, there are 2 climbs on the circuit, but this is the last climb, so climb at number 2, 2 kilometres in length, pitches up at its maximum at 8%. But although this race is relatively short, there are 22 climbs. You're going to have to factor that in. Although these riders, some of them have got the Giro in their legs, some of these riders extremely experienced. Riding at this sort of tempo, it's longer than a criterium, shorter than a kermesse. In terms of distance down and judging your effort because of the points on offer, it's going to be very, very intriguing, because you could easily blow up on a race like this, couldn't you?
Yeah, and that looks exactly what Caleb Ewan has done right now. Number 54 there, the young Australian sprinter who took his first stage victory at the Giro d'Italia just a month or so ago. He's put an enormous effort in already to get into this front group. Looks like Luke Durbridge is the teammate from Orica Scott, who's just chasing down this move from Quick-Step Floors now. But that's not good news for Quick-Step. They did have 2 in this group, and they are already down to 1.
Yeah, another rider just going out the back of this group here is Carlos Barbero. He's not looking particularly comfortable at all. And I think it is worth mentioning, Dan, it's very, very rare in pro racing, unless you see, there's a couple of stages that people go from the gun in the crosswinds, but generally speaking there is more of a rhythm to racing, isn't it? You get a bit of a skirmish and a large peloton, a group establishes itself, but never anything as aggressive as this.
No, and I think that's the thing, isn't it, with this series, is that generally on the start line, the night before, when the teams have their meeting, they will be able to predict roughly what's going to happen. Of course, they can't predict everything on the road, but it does follow a formula, and that is what this is trying to fly in the face of, really. There is no formula to the racing so far, because this is the first ever Hammer Series event. Nobody really knew what to expect. I'm sure they all thought it was going to be very hard from the gun, but I'm not sure anyone was predicting it would be quite this hard.
No, this is absolutely ridiculous. Here we go, we've got confirmation of the results for lap number 1. Orica scored just under 50. The points are decimalised, so we do apologise, but Orica are the leading team after lap 1 with just under 15 points. Lotto Soudal have 10. BMC are third with 7. Then it's Sky, Cannondale, Quick-Step, Mobistar and Sunweb. So at the moment, Orica have the advantage, but they do have a rider that's dropped from the group, so I think they're just down to 2 riders. So still, this whole race could completely change.
Yeah, well, that looks like Patrick Bevin, number 21 from Cannondale Drapac, who has he just been dropped from the lead group, or is he trying to make his way up towards our lead group? But Theo Gegenhardt there on the front from Britain and Team Sky. Tim Wellens up there too, Luke Durbridge, Stefan Kung, Tom Dumoulin. This is a very elite and very strong front group who've already prized themselves clear.
Yeah, I think Gianluca Brambilla was also in the group there, so some real strong climbers. There's Theo Gegenhardt, the only representative from Team Sky. He's just on the front of that group. in that black jersey with his jersey unzipped. And this is that stinging acceleration. It looks like Wellens is going clear, or just accelerating through on the front. Remember, another set of points on offer already.
Yeah, well, this group looks like it's going to whittle down very quickly indeed, Matt, doesn't it? It swelled from about 10 riders over the finish line last lap to around 25 riders, but it's already going to be whittled down again. Here's that last corner before they come up to the sprint. 100 metres to go. It looks like Theo Gegenhardt has got enough here to take the first place and 10 points as they come across the line, or has he? No, Tim Wellens comes through for Lotto Soudal just ahead of the young British rider. Look like Luke Durbridge in third. There's Brambila, Camner from Team Sunweb, Soler there as well from the Mobistar squad. And we'll just wait to see what were the riders that were rounding out the top 10. But this is some incredibly hard racing, Matt.
It is insane. I mean, that group has gone well clear. There's riders here at 6s and 7s. It'd be interesting if we could get a clock on what the time gap is to what remains of the peloton. And you do wonder what kind of impetus, what sort of drive is there for the rest of the bunch, because this is the group that's gone clear. I'd say they've got upwards of a minute over the rest of the field. It could be contested just between these, well, this set of riders. Yeah,
and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, is it? Because one of the problems that we have often is that we don't see anything from the huge stars of the sport until the final few kilometres of race. Even something like Liège-Bastogne-Liège, which is 260 kilometres long. You won't see Alejandro Valverde until the closing kilometre of the race, but on today's race, because there are points every lap, we've seen the stars already come to the fore in the first 10 kilometres, and they're now away, and they've got to fight it out between on every single lap.
I think this sort of format, if you're going to be really honest with it, opens things out to a lot more riders, because you do see riders that are tasking a stage race to go clear in the early moves, and they can get in those kind of moves. And then obviously the race wins are kind of reserved for the riders who occupy the higher echelons of the sport, but this sort of format really does open things out to the lesser lights, or the riders that are generally on a domestic duties. But two riders are now going clear. It's Theo Gegenhardt, very active from the off, and it looks like he's actually got Gianluca Brambilla of Quick Step Floors for company.
Yeah, well, these two just with a small gap now over the rest of the group, which has been at the front right from the very beginning of this race. Theo Gegenhardt, of course, just coming out of the Tour of California. We have got a mix of riders here at this race in terms of what their programme has been on the lead into it. We've got around about 12 riders who come out of the Giro d'Italia, not all of whom finish the race, but also let's not forget that there are 7 riders from each team that they have to be selected from, but only 5 of those riders will start each and every race. So the likes of Andre Greipel, of course, won a stage of the Giro d'Italia, as well as Fernando Gaviria, who won 4. Neither of them are on the start line today. They're saving themselves for the sprint race tomorrow.
Yeah, not really surprised, although we know Gaviria and Grubb can get over the smaller climbs. Probably a good idea to wait because there's been some very, very good climbers. We saw, I think, one of the first riders to go at the back, a little bit of a surprise, was Classics specialist Sepp van Mark, riding for Cannondale Drepak. A bit of a day to forget. But again, this sort of racing doesn't suit everybody. Some of the riders prefer a bit of a slow burn, and as you said, I'm actually quite surprised to see Tom Dumoulin in here. Of course, fresh off the back of winning the Giro d'Italia, but racing on home soil. He said he thinks, as you mentioned earlier, he's going to come good in the second part of this race, and he's probably going to ride relatively conservatively, I think.
Well, still these two riders, Brambilla of Quick Step Floors and Theo Gegenhardt of Team Sky on the front, but you can see that their legs are burning. And there's a few riders now from the other World Tour teams who are about to come across, and it does look like the cream of the crop really have come to the fore already, because very few of the invited teams have managed to get a man into this group. So the composition of the race: 12 teams from the World Tour and then 4 invited teams here as well, they being the Spanish Pro Continental squad, Caca Rural, as well as the Israel Cycling Academy, Nippo Vini Fantini from Italy, and final the local Dutch team, Roompot Netherlands at Lotteray. And I can't see, apart from Nippo Vini Fantini, they're on the left hand side, just moving up. I don't think anybody else has got representation here. And you can see there's a bit of a stalemate here now. You can see the BMC rider on the front trying to persuade the others to roll through and off. But as I said, Matt, in my mind, if I was here on my own and there were other teams with more than one rider, I'd say, no, I'm going to sit on the back here because you're going to be taking way more points than we are.
Yeah, it is an interesting situation. You can just see Mobistar there having a chat with one of the riders from Orica Scott. And I think especially after that ferocious start, remember we're on the 3rd ascent of climb number 1 on the circuit. We're already deep into lap number 3. I think a few of these riders down are going to want to just take stock of the situation. They've still got just under 60 k's to go, so about an hour and a quarter of racing, but still around 18 of these climbs still to go. So, you know, it's a short effort, but still you do need to pace yourself. So I think just a little bit of a settling down we're seeing now.
Well, I was just about to say, Matt, that looking at the composition of this group, it does seem to be full of fairly young riders. I was wondering whether, given it's flat out and full gas right from the gun, whether it does suit a younger rider. But having just about to say that, I noticed, I think Sammy Sanchez, the Olympic champion from 2008 from BMC, I think has made it into this group. We'll just get confirmation of that shortly. There is Daniel Oss, also riding for BMC. I know that they've also got the other Swiss rider there, Stefan Kuhn, but I'm pretty sure I saw Sammy Sanchez. I might be wrong on that, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it does look like, I think I agree, Dan. It looks like Theo Gegenhardt has now gone. Remember, he's the only rider from Team Sky, so if he needs to, it's probably a good tactic to maybe try and profit off the lack of kind of cooperation behind and go clear. He hasn't got a teammate to work with, so a good idea to maybe get up the road and snaffle a few more points. He has been racing very, very strongly, and as you said, he's come off the back of a fantastic Tour of California. Still only 22 years of age, in his first proper year with Team Sky. Actually finished 8th overall in California, and a very, very good climber indeed.
Well, 1 minute and 24 seconds now is the gap between this leading group, and as you can see, there are attacks coming all over the place again. Tom Dumoulin keen to do well here in front of his home crowd, and incidentally, yesterday he had a bike park named after him locally, and I think he was also knighted by the Dutch royalty yesterday. So it's been a very busy few days since he won the Giro d'Italia last Sunday. 4 packed days in between, and it's great to see that he's not just turned up to take the adulation of the crowd, but he's really getting his teeth stuck into this, isn't he?
No, he's definitely giving this crowd something to cheer for. It won't be long before they're back up this second climb. This is the drop down now over the first climb to the foot of the main climb on this circuit. Remember, it's 2.2 kilometers in length. It's really going to start to eat into the reserves of these riders. A lovely aerial shot of the group, or 6 or 7 riders now snaking their way down. This is that tight hairpin where you lose all of your momentum. It looks like the rider from Nippo Vini Fantini is trying to get across to Theo Gegenhardt.
Well, that's one of the interesting points of this course, Matt, isn't it? That hairpin bend almost that they get just there, because as you said, it does take all of the speed out, and you really have to get going again before you start the next climb up towards the finish. As you said, Matt, this one is 2.2 kilometers in length as they head towards the top, where the finish point of each lap is located. Maximum gradient of 8.5%. It's called the Valderberg. It's 320 meters above sea level when they get to the top, which is in fact the highest point in the Netherlands. And the finish line point is actually where the borders of Germany, Belgium and the Netherlands meet.
It certainly is, and they've got 3 flags to commemorate that very point. Not too much time for the riders to glance at those flags. It's all about this all-out effort, but they've got to keep a little bit back as well. But 3 riders, then a group of 5, then 4. This is absolutely splitting to pieces. And with almost every pedal revolution in this front group down, they're moving further and further away from the floundering peloton. And there are several big teams that have missed this front move. Bahrain Merida do not have anybody in the front split. Cannondale Drapac Pro Cycling did have a rider in the front, Pat Bevan. He was then dispatched on the climb. But riders really finding it hard to get into the rhythm. And Tom Dumoulin now has made his way across to this front group.
Wow.
Fantastic stuff.
So 4 World Tour teams plus a rider from Nippo Vini Fantini in this front group of 5. And this really is fascinating because we don't know how this race is going to pan out. We've obviously got a good idea now after the first couple of laps of this race, but if more and more riders get dropped from that front group, Matt, and more are joined by the group behind, teams that aren't represented at the front surely are going to get together and organise some kind of chase. So even though you're a minute and a half or so down at this point, you might well be able to get back into the race at some point.
Fair enough. We just get confirmation of the latest climb. So after the second lap, the team that are leading, Orica, have 18.4 points. Lotto Soudal have moved up to second. BMC in third. Then Quickstep, Sky, Movistar, Sunweb, and Lotto NL Jumbo. So we're on the climb now. Victor Campenaerts, the Belgian TT champion. He's riding hard on the front, just rolling through. He of course had that. You got any data for us, Si?
Well,
any questions? You have. You got some data.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. So first things first. I'm not sure why you bought stools when the old GCN sofa could be dusted off. Absolutely, this is great racing. The comment section is going off on both Facebook and YouTube. Loads of cool stuff going on. Niels Heldens, who's a regular GCN commenter, pointed out a nice little bit of trivia for us here that actually this is the highest point in the Netherlands.
Just over 300 metres, I believe.
That's right. Yeah. But then we've had a few questions putting to you. So Michael Poir, he said, what happens to the riders if they get lapped? Can we clarify the situation? Because they get pulled out, don't they? But then also, importantly, their points actually go with them, don't they? So, for example, Caleb Ewan was in the mix on the first lap. It's likely that he's going to get pulled out, so Orica Greenedge are potentially going to lose his points. So that's an important thing to remember. And then also, a few people who've tuned in a little bit late are unfamiliar with this new format because, let's face it, for a bike racing fan, it looks like absolute anarchy out on the roads. So Oscar Martinson has asked that in particular, what do you think, guys? Can we summarise the Hammer series?
Can we just summarise it in 2 seconds? We're just coming up to the third sprint of the day, 150 metres. They're just going to be rounding that final corner in a few moments' time. Theo Geoghegan-Hart is on the front, Carlos Betancourt on the inside for Movistar, Tom Dumoulin on the left-hand side, the rangy, powerful Dutchman, of course, Giornatelli winner. He's going for it. Who's going to take that first corner first?
Well, it looks like Theo Geoghegan-Hart is really up for this race, isn't he? He just got pipped by Tim Wellens the last time through. He's also going second through the last corner this time. Looks like Carlos Betancourt, though, from Team Movistar, the Colombian rider, former winner of Paris-Nice, is going to take maximum points for the Spanish squad this time. It's great to see him back.
Well, I think it is. Just an aside before we answer those questions, so we can confirm Sammy Sanchez is in that group. I just noted those gold bands on his jersey, so Sammy Sanchez in the mix. But Dan, summarise the series for us, because it is a completely different concept, isn't it, as Simon was saying?
Yeah, it's all about the teams, this Hammer series. It's not about the individual rider, although obviously individual riders pick up points at the finish line here every single lap around. This is the climb, today being Friday. Tomorrow on Saturday we will have the sprint, which is exactly the same format, on slightly less laps of a slightly longer but much flatter circuit, where we will see the likes of Gaviria and Gripe and Caleb Ewan going head to head. But I'm just wondering, Matt, whether it's not just about how good you are on paper at sprinting, because when you have to do it lap after lap after lap and the group can split up, it could be anyone that's taking maximum points at the head of affairs. There you've got confirmation. It was, well, we got given Campanart there in second place, did we?
Yeah, I don't think it was. It looked to me as if it was Theo Geoghegan-Hart in second. Campanart, I think, rolled across the line in fourth place there. And the other rider in the mix, you know, punching well above his weight, I think, the Nippo Vini Fantini rider in orange is Yuri Filossi, the Italian. So an interesting group now, a real mixed bag of riders moving clear. But as you said, that we accumulate the points from the Hammer Climber race and the Hammer Sprint race, and then basically there's almost like a pursuit team time trial on the Sunday, which is the main event. So if you accumulate enough points to top the table on after days 1 and 2, you'll go first off in the team time trial. Then the teams will be staggered behind at certain time gaps, and then basically it's a pursuit to the line. So quite an interesting finale it's going to be.
Well, it's very close at the top, as you can see, just 0.1 of a point separating BMC Racing, who are currently leading from Team Sky, and that's basically just Theo Geoghegan-Hart picking up all the points for them. Movistar in third, just 1.4 points behind Team Sky. Lotte Soudal and Orica Scott rounding out the top 5, and back in the end positions, as you can see, there are 6 teams who have yet 7 teams, in fact, who have yet to take a point on this race. Rumpot, Bahrain Merida, Trek Segafredo, a bit disappointing for them. UAE Team Emirates not up there, neither Cannondale Drapac nor Capital Royale, and the Israel Cycling Academy as well. So they've got a lot of work to do if they want to get back into this race and start picking up some points. Let's not forget, it's the 10 best teams at the end of the race today who will be picking up extra bonus seconds, which will count towards that final day chase, the team time trial, where the 4th rider across the line from the first team will win the day.
Yeah, but interestingly, it's a team time trial, not exactly with a twist, it's the kind of team time trial we're used to. They will be riding time trial bikes, and they have to stay in team formation as well. We don't think we've ever seen anything like it, have we, Simon? It's going to be something, this is unique enough, but a pursuit team time trial on TT bikes we've got to stay in formation. How do you think it's going to look?
Well, I don't know. I mean, presumably, if you're going to ride your team time trial, you're going to ride as a unit, you're going to ride in a controlled fashion, but having the carrot dangling in front of you of that position, you know, time trialing is not normally so visual, so it's going to be absolutely brilliant. Now, I'm just going to bring us back to some data. Stato over here in the corner. This being Velon, we have the luxury of live data, and we thought that the guys were going flat out. We can see clearly they're going flat out because the race is in pieces, but some of the power that's being put down here. Tim Wellens has posted well north of 1,000 watts as his best already. That was right back on one of the earlier laps. There's a lot of red showing on the heart rate, so a lot of guys up in about 180 beats per minute on those climbs. Even Tom Dumoulin, interestingly, who was obviously just come off the Giro, you'd expect him to be pretty fatigued, but he's pushing really hard, and it looks a little bit like when they're on the climb, they're doing about 500 watts, but I suspect right now they're doing even more.
I reckon from about half distance though, you're going to expect those kind of wattages to kind of drop. But this is one heck of a training session as well as a fantastic race, isn't it? I mean, the sort of staccato effort that these riders are having to put in, it's absolutely fascinating. There's Dumoulin looking over his shoulder to see what the damage is behind, and this group now, Dan, working very smoothly together. The peloton now holding steady at 1 minute and 31.
Well, they all have a reason to now, don't they? With 5 individual riders from 5 different teams in this group at the moment. They've all got a reason to press on and press home their advantage on the rest of the race, because no team here has a numerical advantage over anybody else. So we can see Carlos Betancourt here from Team Movistar, Campenaerts there. Incidentally, Matt,
yep.
Campenaerts, of course, you might remember during the Giro d'Italia, he asked Carlin for a date.
Yeah, he did.
By unzipping his skin suit with a sign written on his chest. We understand they've been out for their date, if you're interested, and they've decided to stay just friends.
Well, it's still it's a kind of a semi-happy ending, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, 5 riders at the front. We've also got Tom Dumoulin there as well, but this group behind is just about to make contact almost, and BMC, of course, have the biggest reason really to chase it down, although Quick-Step, of course, have missed out on that front group as well, so they'll be keen to bring this back before they come through for the next finish line lap.
Yeah, so Remy Cavagna and Gianluca Brambilla in the mix there for Quick-Step, and as you said, the other big team, strong in number, who haven't managed to get into this front group, which is working very, very well together, is BMC. So unsurprisingly, that's why we're seeing BMC in the red and black and Quick-Step floors in that blue kit working together. It's holding steady. Actually, interestingly, Dan, the gap has now come down. The bunch are eating back into lead. It's now holding steady at 1 minute and 26 seconds. So this isn't certainly a foregone conclusion, especially now we're a couple of laps in. A lot of the riders are well warmed up. There's several teams that have missed the boat completely. If they join forces, we could see this come back together, although this sort of terrain is going to make that very, very hard.
Yeah, 1 minute and 22, that's going to be a tough gap to close, isn't it, when you look at how hard the front riders are still pressing on, although it is ticking down, 1 minute and 18 seconds now. Here's some of that onboard footage which Velon are bringing into cycling. So this is Carlos Betancourt with the GoPro facing backwards, as you can see, Campenaerts there on his wheel. So a real insight into what it's like out there on the open road, and it looks like they're extending their gap ever so slightly over the group which they've got behind. Yeah, but
they've extended the gap over the group just behind. But the bunch behind are actually closing 1 minute and 12 seconds, and that does suggest there's a little bit of unison behind, and the teams that have missed out are starting to ride on the front. And there is the gap between groups 1 and 2 on the road, and then 1 minute and 11 seconds back to the peloton at the moment.
Well, Team Sky are going to have to do a lot of thanking to Theo Gegenhardt today, aren't they? Because he was the only rider that's ever been in that front group from the British World Tour squad, but he's been so successful across the line each lap that they're actually right up there in the top 3 of the classification as we stand. We've had 3 lap points so far, 3 laps completed. They'll be shortly coming up to the 4th time up the line. Remember, it's 11 laps today. The last lap was double points, so that would have helped Theo Gegenhardt and Team Sky's cause, but still very close amongst 5 or 6 teams up here at the top of proceedings right now. Will this come together before they get to the top of the next climb? It looks like the tactic from BMC behind is to put Stefan Kung there on the front to try and bring this back, and hope that Sammy Sanchez there at the back has got enough going over the top. But Tim Velon's here.
That's a surprise, isn't it? Sorry to cut across you there, Dan. I can really feel his pain. Look at the face of Wellens. We're used to seeing him up the front and out in front, but he's been detached on this climb. Still 50 kilometers to go. We've only actually done 27 k's off this race, and it's split all over this beautiful green verdant countryside in the Netherlands. But I'm surprised to see Tim Wellens go backwards so early.
Yeah, that is a surprise. Tim Wellens, of course, a double winner of the Eneco Tour, prolific winner really in general, considering that he's not a pure climber or a pure sprinter. And this course, you'd have thought, would have been perfect for him. But the same could be said for Philippe Gilbert, the national champion of Belgium, riding for Quick-Step floors. You would have thought that this region of the Netherlands, which he knows very well indeed, and the type of climbs that they've got and the repetitive nature of them would be very suited to Gilbert.
I think when you look at the kind of riders who we know can fight it out for honours in a big classic, they are used to being protected, they're used to conserving their energy, and I think it's almost counterintuitive counterintuitive of them to go hard from the gun. So I think some of these riders that we're used to seeing at the sharp end in the longer races are just finding it a real struggle to sort of go full throttle so early on. But we could, in the latter part, the last 30 kilometres of this race, see some of the classic specialists perhaps coming to the fore.
Well, what we're normally used to seeing in pro road racing is a fairly relaxed start, except for the early breakaway, and then a gradual build-up as they come towards the finish, especially in a race like Milan-San Remo, or indeed the Tour of Flanders, or any of the one-day classics, where you don't see the big guns until the closing stages of the race. It looks like it's flipped on its head for this race, doesn't it? You have to be there from the gun, picking up points from your team. Nobody can afford to sit back and wait for that final effort towards the line. And that has caught a few of the bigger riders out, hasn't it?
It certainly has. But what we just see, Ventoux rolling the pedals up the climb. Simon, got anything more from Facebook?
Well, we do indeed, yeah. A few people really looking closely at the state of riders. Pete Davies saying Teo Geoghegan-Hart, after that early work, is not looking too comfortable. I'm not surprised he's not looking too comfortable, given the effort. But I'm just wondering here, given that we've just seen Tim Wellens going out the back, you know, we saw from his stats that he's been putting out max power of well over 1,000 watts, the average power for those guys. So Tom Dumoulin, Remy Cavagna, they're looking at about 370 watts average at the moment.
Wow.
I wonder whether the guys in the peloton aren't out of this yet, because if you go into the red early doors in a 2-hour race, then you're going to pay for that, as we've just seen Tim Wellens do. He's now got to finish in order for his team to keep those points. Perhaps the peloton, guys like Gilbert, are going to be able to come back and then really start to make the race at the end. We could yet see an about turn.
Do you think, though, guys, as we go to on the monitor, we're just going through to BMC Racing. That's Marco Pinotti sat in the passenger seat, the TT coach actually for BMC. As we see, well, let's just cut away from that for a moment. It's Victor Campenaerts going for the sprint here. Betancourt also in the mix as the group closes in behind. Teo Geoghegan-Hart now opens up his sprint. About 200 metres to go before the line down.
Yeah, 200 metres to go before the fourth lap is completed. Just normal points this time, so 10 for the first rider across the line. Carlos Betancourt once again looking fantastic. In fact, it's the same 1-2 at the moment as they head round the last corner with 100 metres to go. Has Teo got anything left to take over Betancourt? No, it looks like it's going to be the same 1-2 as we had the previous time across the line. And possibly 1-2-3, Campenaerts up there as well. Meanwhile, behind, it looks like Luke Durbridge sprinting across for 6th place. So difficult time at the moment for Quick-Step and BMC Floors. And actually the dominant team really at the moment, looking down at the composition of these groups, is Movistar. They've got Betancourt there in the front, who's flying. And they've got 2 riders here in the group behind, including Nelson Oliveira, the Portuguese rider, and also Soler, I think, is the other rider from Movistar, former winner of the Tour de l'Avenir a couple of years ago.
Here's that slow-mo Betancourt just affording himself a few moments to look over his shoulder to ensure he's got the points. He can just back off a little bit, saving a little bit of energy. He knows it's in the bag, but great riding by young Teo Geoghegan-Hart. As we see a maze, and what a maze it is today in terms of understanding the tactics of these riders. Here is the current standings. Movistar top the rankings, as you said. They've got numerical supremacy, 37.9, Team Sky there, 35.9, BMC in 3rd, Sunweb 4th, of course they have Tom Dumoulin in that front split, Orica Scotland behind, and there's the rest. From 9th to 16th, Dan, none of these teams have scored any points whatsoever, but still we have 48 kilometres to go.
Yeah, so not even halfway through this race yet. That is the 4th lap, I think I'm right, that they've completed. 11 laps, so 7 still to go in this race. Anything still could happen, but it's pretty tight still there at the top. Here's one of the teams who've missed out big time so far in this inaugural Hammer Series event. Trek Segafredo, nobody at the front. They were certainly caught out from the beginning. And I think riders are going to learn a lot from this, Matt, in heading into tomorrow's race. Of course, tomorrow, Saturday, the sprint, not going to be anywhere near as hard in terms of elevation on each and every lap, but I think that anyone watching this race today will be thinking, right, we don't want to be anywhere outside the top 30 places at the end of the neutralised section tomorrow.
No, definitely. It's again, I'm just going to take my hat off to Teo Geoghegan-Hart. You know, the 2nd place at the moment by virtue of just the points that he's scored. So yeah, very, very interesting out there. Just a quick aside, we understand that Tom Bonan is actually watching on Facebook. What he thinks of all this. Tom, if you're watching, we've got information to that effect. Please get in contact. He's giving it a big thumbs up. Thanks, Tom. We love you, Tom. Come back to the sport, mate. We miss you. Anyway, pick it up now.
Yeah, 47 kilometres to go out of a total of 78 that they have into ride today. The technicality of this course is also adding to the difficulty. I mean, this is the climb, but make no mistake, this is not something suited to Nairo Quintana or to Chris Froome. These are short, punchy climbs, the likes of which you see, of course, in the Amstel Gold Race, which is in this region each and every year. So it suits those punchy climbers, the likes of Tim Wellens, who incidentally has just gone out the back. I am surprised actually to see Carlos Betancourt up here. Great to see him back. He's had some troubles over the past couple of years, hasn't he? But we haven't seen him at the front of a big race for quite some time. But this is obviously a circuit and a style of racing that really suits the Colombian rider.
Yeah, it certainly does. But now we've just seen a sharp acceleration by the rider from BMC to try and finally close that gap, because over the last couple of laps, Dan, this group of 5 riders in front have been netting all of the points, despite the fact that BMC and Quick Step Floors have the numerical advantage. So important that BMC work together with Quick Step Floors to get it back, and that is what they've done. The junction looks as if it's about to be made.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, the standings as we are at the moment with Movistar and Team Sky. They're kind of pulling away courtesy of their 2 riders, Carlos Betancourt and Theo Gegenhardt. They've now got at least a 6-point advantage over the next team, BMC Racing, who are frantically chasing our leading group of 5 from behind here at the moment. Stuff, mate, isn't it? Team Sunweb in 4th place provisionally at the moment, with Orica Scott in 5th. So those 3 teams are sitting fairly close in the overall classification here at the moment. Big losers really, Quick Step Floors, who kind of instigated that first attack and the first selection. They're at 6th at the moment on 17.5 points, so a full 22.4 points behind our leaders Movistar. I wouldn't have predicted that at the start. No, there's a big attack on the left hand side. It looks like it could be Barbero, who's just gone on the inside. He's taken a, this is a group behind, in fact. Oh, sorry, this is Barbero, and also one of the other riders from Sunweb, who's in that front group. So the group with Dumoulin and Theo Gegenhardt has been reabsorbed. There's Sammy Sanchez just moving up round the outside, and meanwhile the rider that was away and scoring points for the Netherlands team is Victor Campenaerts, who looks down as if he's starting to struggle, and we cannot deny the fact that making such stinging efforts so early in the race side is going to have some effect on your legs, isn't it? Absolutely. I think these guys are racing in such a different way. They're going to be hoping desperately that things are going to be slowing down a bit very soon. Going back to Dan's point about what type of rider this suits, we've had some really interesting comments coming in on Facebook and on YouTube. Lisa Higgins, she said it's a great way to give other riders the chance to impress. Could you potentially be a hammer specific rider? And Leandro Giannini said actually he'd love to see Nino Schurter, the world's best mountain biker, having a go at this. That's a really good point. There's quite a parallel. Obviously they're on tarmac, but in terms of the effort needed, and then what would happen if Mathieu van der Poel and Wout van Aert, 2 cyclist legends, current world champion, I mean, you'd imagine those guys would be going from the gun, going flat out. That could be good, couldn't it? Imagine throwing some cross teams. That was my very first thought, Si, when you said, is there anyone that could specialise in the Hammer Series races? Those 2 guys, the most talented riders almost in the world at the moment, Wout van Aert and Mathieu van der Poel. I think they would absolutely dominate a race like this. With those short, sharp efforts, right from the gun, it's exactly what they're used to, isn't it? Yeah, it's only an hour and a half of racing, so yes, certainly within their capabilities. Of course, the next Hammer Series race is going to be in 2018. It's Stavanger in Norway. That should be very interesting. It'll be interesting to see what teams turn up for that, and if we have a slightly different composition. But another cyclocross rider, not riding today, but I understand will be on Quick Step Floors team tomorrow, is Denik Stibar. And I'm a little bit surprised they didn't have him in the mix looking at the parkour today. Well, what's the situation out there on the road? This front group kind of came back together, didn't it? But they've already started to split up again, but a slightly different composition, as you can see now, of our front group. Campenaerts, who was out there for Team Lotto NL Jumbo in the yellow for quite some time, now finds himself at the back of the chasing group, and there is a very small gap now. As you can see, Team Movistar now driving it. I think they've got Carlos Betancourt on his own here at the front, but one of their other riders driving it from behind and splitting this group up now. That's Soler on the front, that young talent. A wonderful start to the season, as you say, former winner of Paris-Nice, and I think, winner of the Tour l'Avenir, and Campenaerts in all sorts of trouble. And again, generally in a race, even when it's been a fast start in a long race, Dan,
the race at some point does settle down into a rhythm, and you wonder at what point this race is going to settle down to a less staccato, aggressive sort of rhythm. But I guess with those points on for every lap, that's never going to happen, and it is something that the riders are normally used to, isn't it?
Here we go then. Veloci of Team Nippo Vini Fantini has gone on the attack, and I think he's drawn 1 or 2 riders out with him. In fact, it's one of the quick step floors riders who's come up there. We've got Brambilla and Cavagna, and it's the former that's made it onto the back wheel of his compatriot. Good to see Remy Cavagna up here, Matt. He's a very young 22-year-old French rider from the quick step floors who just recently finished runner-up at the Tour of Belgium. So as we said, there's a lot of different programs that have been going on over the last few weeks. Some riders here from the Giro d'Italia, some coming out of the Tour of California, some from Norway, but also some from the Tour of Belgium as well.
Indeed, of course the Tour of Belgium was held the other week. I think one of the riders, of course, Philippe Gilbert, the Belgian road champion, not in this front split. As we get the picture there again. So Marco Pinotti on the radio, the riders of course in radio contact with their director sportifs, and I think that is increasingly important in a race like this. They need to know exactly what the point situation is, whether to be aggressive or save themselves for another lap, because I don't think any one rider can actually go flat stick for 11 laps down. I just don't think they've got it in them. I don't think it's a particularly wise tactic. I think it's about holding a little bit back to make sure they're at the back end and maybe focusing on the double points.
Well, are they going to be able to pick up some points here, Quick Step, and bring down the gap that they've now got between themselves and the leading couple of teams? Quick Step, of course, now in around about 5th place, in the 6th place, should I say, on 17.5 points. They've got quite a lot of time and points to make up now, and it looks like Cavagna, in fact, has just been blown out the back. You can see how hot it is out there today. It is around about 30 degrees, and in fact there is a chance of thunderstorms in the latter part of this race. Let's hope it stays dry for the riders, but it is very hot, and it's going to be very hard to take on enough liquids and fluids today when the racing is so frantic.
Yeah, I think generally in a long, steadier race, it's easy to remind yourself when to eat and drink, but you know, if you cast your minds back, we've all ridden criteriums in the past, and this is or Kermesses in the past, and that's the type of race, because it's so full on that it's very, very easy to forget to take enough fuel on board. And as you said, rightly said, Dan, on a day like this, it's very humid, very, very warm indeed. You know, nutrition is vital, primarily in terms of making sure you get enough fluid on board, but Cavagna looked to be in all sorts of difficulty there.
Well, we're just about to come up to the top and the finish line where the next points are on offer. It is a normal points system on this lap, so as Matt said earlier on, we've got 3 laps where double points are on offer. Lap 3, lap 7, and then the finale, the final time that they go over the finish line. And it's the same couple of riders that are still in this group, isn't it? Theo Gegenhardt and also Carlos Betancourt. Here's Sammy Sanchez rocking and rolling behind. You can see how hard this race has been. They've not even done 35 kilometres really yet, or they've just about gone over that now. Here they are then, coming up towards that final corner with 100 metres to go. Looks like Tom Dumoulin's coming out towards the front now. A group of about 6 are going to contest the top points this time around.
They certainly are. Stefan Kung was also in the mix. Theo Gegenhardt still there. Also the rider from Nippo Vini Fantini in the mix as well, Yuri Filossi. This is the group just behind. Betancourt leads round the final corner. Again, Theo Gegenhardt is on his wheel. Dumoulin is there as well. There's the final corner. It looks like it's going to be Betancourt yet again at a bit of a canter. Betancourt constantly glancing behind. Theo Gegenhardt is in second. Dumoulin is third. And 7 riders left, and the gap opening to the group behind. A real selection has been made.
Well, he's the king of the hammer so far, isn't he? Carlos Betancourt, the Colombian rider there, that's just coming through your screens now, riding for Team Movistar. That's the 3rd finish line in a row where he's taken maximum points for his team. Sammy Sanchez leading a group of 4 across behind. So we'll get an update for you again. In fact, we had another Movistar rider in between, so they're going to be very much extending their lead at the moment in this competition.
They certainly are. That was a Soler just in the gap, essentially in no man's land. And there is the last group from this, well, the last 4 riders from the front group. And the gap has opened again to the peloton behind. 1 minute and 37 seconds with 41 k's to go. Let's have some stats, Si.
Well, yeah, stats over in the corner. Really interesting. We witnessed Remy Cavagna blowing his doors and getting dropped out the back of the group. He is now currently putting out 75 watts. Blimey. He really has cracked, hasn't he? And again, he's got to watch out that he stays in the race, because there's a risk that his points could go.
He's got to get into the final lap for those points to score.
Absolutely, yeah. So really, really interesting to see. The other guys, the average powers are making my eyes water. So Theo Gegenhardt averaging around 400 watts apparently, which is just mind-blowing, isn't it? Absolutely mind-blowing. I'm really interested, again, seeing the comments. A lot of people are really embracing this Hammer Series format. We've got Yilman Babylonia saying it's a nice format, a bit crazy, but it's great for a change.
I agree, it's crazy.
Yeah, Samuel Mumby saying the new format is interesting. Would it bridge the void between classic road racing and trendy fixed gear crits?
Ooh, well
Tony
put.
Strange wants to see it come to his local roads. He wants to watch this on the side of the road, and I tell you what, that would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Right,
You can
definitely.
watch it live on your phone and then watch the riders come past 12 times. Fantastic. Yeah, really, a lot of love going on for this Hammer Series, and I can see why.
And we've still got about an hour of racing to go. Still 40 kilometres, and it's absolutely all over the place.
Well, the predicted average speed for the race today, the climb, was just 36 kilometres per hour, but I don't suppose even the organisers expected it to go full gas from the gun, as these riders have done. So 40 k's to go. They've done just over 37 kilometres now, so not even quite at the halfway mark. Not sure exactly where the group is out there on the road at the moment. Just trying to fire up my Velon app to see what the gap is between this front group and the main peloton, if there is indeed a main peloton behind, because that is the other thing, Matt. There are only 80 riders starting today, 16 teams of 5, and that is the same on every single day of this 3-day Hammer Series. So that's not a big peloton, and when you've got a circuit like today and it splits up from the gun, it can be very hard to make a big chase from behind and get organised.
Yeah, well, the last check we had just a few moments ago was 1 minute and 37 seconds, and I did a rough count of the riders as they passed through the line. So the last time we saw the peloton, I counted no more than about 34, 35 riders left in that main group. Some of the teams didn't have any representation at all. It was Trek Segafredo trying to chase, but from what I saw, the composition, the makeup and the colour blocking on the front just didn't seem to be there. And I think the peloton, what's left of it, are drifting further and further behind, because there's some real cohesion in this front group, as we see the Giro d'Italia champion Tom Dumoulin getting that familiar aero tuck on that descent.
It's great to see him up there. I was not expecting Tom Dumoulin to be up there on today's race. Yes, I know he's an incredibly classy rider who's obviously on fantastic form, but this is just such a different concept in terms of racing. Such short, sharp efforts. And when you come out of doing 3,500 kilometres over 3 weeks, I just didn't think he'd have the punch in his legs to be able to do these repetitive, short, sharp efforts, which are basically a requirement if you want to do well on this particular day. Carlos Betancourt still there. We've got a group of around 7 riders now at the front. That looks to be Luke Durbridge of Orica Scott, Theo Gegenhardt there, Carlos Betancourt, who's been the best rider in this race by far since we started. We've also got Stefan Kung there, the Swiss rider from Team BMC. Brambilla is the rider who's just going through the GoPro shot from the back of Carlos Betancourt, Tom Dumoulin, and finally Filosi of Team Nippo, Vinny Fantini. So 7 riders now at the front with a very distinct and clear advantage over all of the groups behind.
Well, let's have a look at the results after lap 5, Dan, as this group settles down into the first time I can see anything resembling a sort of rhythm, a real settling down of the race. Now, Movistar lead with 50.1 points. Team Sky, again, just by virtue of Theo Gegenhardt's points, are second with 44. Then we have BMC in third, Sunweb fourth, Orica Scott in 5th, Lotto Soudal in 6th. Then we have Quick Step Floors, Nippo, Vini, Fantini, Team Lotto, Enel Jumbo, and the last team to score any points down in 10th, Canadel Drapac. Then we have Trek, UAE Team Emirates, Roompot, Cabaret, Israel Cycling Academy, and Bahrain Merida on 0 points.
Well, here's confirmation of the leading group, which we just went through a few moments ago. And looking at the distance and the gap that they've got to anybody else out there on the road, Matt, if they do start working together, which they seem very happy to do, only 1 rider from each team, nobody's got any strength in depth when it comes to the numerical advantage. If they start working together, I'm not sure they're ever going to be seen again on this race, because they'll sweep, of course, the first 7 places out of 10 in terms of the points every time they cross the finish line. They're literally just about to come to the halfway point of the race in terms of distance, which means that they are on lap 6 out of 11 as we speak. This time through it will be normal points. Next time through is another opportunity to get yourself double points.
Yeah, I think the only unknown quantity in this group is Filosi, the rider on the front, but otherwise it is a breakaway, absolutely glittering with talent. Riders who can climb down, riders who are very good rouleurs. You look at Stefan Kung, the former World Pursuit champion, very, very good time trialist, the young Swissman. Gianluca Brambilla, former Maglio Rosa were, of course, in last year's Giro d'Italia. Then you have Turbo Durbo, Luke Durbridge, great track rider, but spends so much time on the front of the bunch. He has got a massive engine. Teo Gegenhardt, a real good climber, clearly feeling very sprightly after his great result. This is a group that, if they work together, which they clearly do, could actually succeed. I do tend to agree with you.
Well, here's a look inside the cars of Quick-Step Team Somewhere BMC as well. It'd be very interesting to hear exactly what they're saying to their riders at the moment. Of course, those teams, the top two at least, have got representation in the front group. But BMC, the big losers really here at the moment. They've got Stefan Kuhn up there, of course, haven't they? So they've all got representation here in this front group. But behind, they also had Sammy Sanchez, who for a while was right up there in the mix with this front group, but at the moment has found himself some way off the back.
It does feel, do you know the way the race is just kind of broken down? It actually feels, Dan, like I'm commentating on the last 40k of a race. They've already got 160, 170k in the legs. It really has the kind of finale feel about the race. I don't know what you think, Si.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And the guys that are looking as tired as they would be in the finale of the Tour of Flanders is absolutely fascinating. One thing I'm wondering is about the dynamic now. So we've got that lead group of 7. That means that there's still going to be riders now in between the lead group and the peloton that are going to be counting for points. So is that now going to add a little bit of incentive to the peloton to start riding, you know, and start trying to bridge that gap? So it's going to be interesting keeping a track. We can see on the Velon app that there are riders, bodies, literally all over the route. There are people kilometres and kilometres back. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible, absolutely fantastic. There's also a few concerns in the comments about your ability to last the pace, guys. Darren Crowley saying, top level commentary, can you keep up the pace for the next hour? We are only halfway through. What kind of wattage are you putting out?
I've never commentated on a race this aggressive. I'm putting out north of 220 watts at times, and I don't think I can sustain that. I really don't. So I might have to knock it off a bit and bring somebody in. What about you, Dan?
Well, I think our tactic was very similar to Tom Steele's, the sports director of Quick-Step.
Flat out.
Commentate like you're 16-year-old.
Yeah, which you're pretty much doing.
Yeah,
Except from the booze.
Go from the gun. There are no tactics here, so I think we've left a lot out on the road already. Only about halfway through the race so far today, but if we do fade, it's only along with the riders.
But do you know what we haven't done yet? Is introduce any lyrics from MC Hammer's Hammer Time song. That's still to come. Yeah.
We've got a comment here from Swedish House FIFA. He's a regular on GCN. He's saying this is the definition of full gas racing. And I think he's right. And Peter Morel saying what a great addition to the GCN channel as well. So people loving the commentary, chaps. That's fantastic.
That's great. And one thing we need to mention, we've still got 36k's to go. It's worth downloading, if obviously you're watching us on Facebook or on YouTube, for a kind of added dimension to this. Simon's got his phone open. It's on Android and of course on iOS. Download for free the Velon app, and you can then track the rides. I think there's 30 riders showing data today, Si, isn't there? So they've got GPS units on the back of their bikes. You can just see them tucked underneath the saddle. If you log into that, absolutely free. You'll be able to marry up what you see on the screen with the data and the stats that riders are putting out. It's really worth downloading that, and you can also get it on the Velon website. That's velon.cc as well.
Well, they're just on the climb up towards the finish line once again, and it seems like these 7 riders have really got together now and got organised. And that, as I said before, is going to make it very difficult for any of the groups and any of the teams to come back from behind. So we've got Team Sunweb represented with Tom Dumoulin. My question with him, Matt, he's not obviously the best sprinter out of this group in terms of the fact that we've seen him a couple of times now. He's not been able to live with Carlos Betancourt or indeed with Teo Gegenhardt when it comes to picking up points across the line. Will he, in his head, be thinking, I need to go solo here? He's a great time trialist. We've seen how well he's going in individual efforts at the Giro d'Italia. If he can't out-sprint them, does he have no choice but to try and go on his own?
If I was lucky enough to have the physiological attributes of Tom Dumoulin, right now what I'd do for the next couple of laps is let the road. I wouldn't try and sprint for the win. I'd try and stick top 3, top 4. Try and mop up points gradually, and then with maybe 2-3 laps to go, maybe try and go solo, maybe bring one of the stronger riders clear. Because I don't think when you look at the composition of this group, although the race is only 77 kilometres, and it also depends, of course, how well recovered Tom Dumoulin is after his exploits at the Giro d'Italia. But yeah, I'd be thinking, I need to just sit here, let the road do the work, and when you sense that the other riders are fatiguing, hit them with 2 or 3 laps to go, mop up the points, rather than sprinting and wasting energy against riders clearly sharper than yourself.
Well, it's getting slightly cagey here now. It looks like Brambilla is getting himself ready to kind of launch a surprise
handbags there, mate.
but it's all over the road, isn't it? This is that corner which is just coming up now. In fact, no, we're a bit further out. 250 metres to go now until we get to the finish line. Let's see who's going to be able to score maximum points. Veloci is absolutely flying today. He's not a name that we are as familiar with as the rest of the riders in this group. He's flying around that last corner. 50 metres to go now. It looks like Veloci is going to take maximum points this time around for Nippo Fantini, or is he? Yes, just about. Carlos Betancourt, though, consistent as ever in second place across the line there. But Tom Dumoulin, he's struggling to keep with the pace.
I think it's just that sharpness. Dumoulin's got the engine, he just doesn't have that sharpness. He'll get back in contact. He's got the biggest engine of all of these riders here. He will not panic, as we saw. That's one thing that we saw at the Giro d'Italia. I think it's worth reflecting back on that monumental effort. It's just the fact that he can measure his effort. Here's the minor placing sprint. Sammy Sanchez there, old golden shoes himself, just coming round the finishing straight, trying to mop up a few points for BMC. But the points are going to be taken down by the Sunweb rider just crossing the line now.
Yeah, I think that Sunweb rider is Leonard Kamner, who's a 20-year-old climber. So good to see him right up there as well. So he was the best of that group, whilst his teammate at Sunweb, Tom Dumoulin, brought up the rear of the first group out there on the road. And it looks to be in the region of 30 seconds now between our leading group of 7 and these chasers behind them. We still haven't seen any footage of the main peloton.
We certainly haven't. Well, here's another angle. It's nice to see the angle from behind here. Just a little bit of brinkmanship. Oh, look at that. That's technically that is against the rules. This, remember, although it's a very unusual format to this race, it is still being run under UCI regulations, and we'll have to see what the commissaires think about that. But definitely, contact was made. And a bit of a Tommy Voeckler style from this rider here as he crosses the line.
Yeah, well, this is a unique format, Matt. This is, of course, still being held under UCI regulations, and UCI regulations state that you're not allowed to take your arms off the bars and touch another rider. So it'll be interesting to see what the commissaires have to say about that later on this evening.
Well, we've got the latest update for you. As you see, Tom Dumoulin just rolling across the line. Movistar are leading, 59.7 points. Team Sky still in second place. Then we have BMC with 42.1, fourth Orica Scott with 38.4 points, very close behind our Sunweb. Then we have Nippo Fantini, Quick Step Floors, Team Lotto NL Jumbo in 8th, Cannondale Drepack Pro Cycling Team in 9th. And then the rest of the teams from 10th onward, headed up by Bahrain Merida, I think Virtual Alpe Galorda, all still have no points. So basically we have only 8 points, Dan and Si, that have scored points in this race, meaning those other teams, if they want to get back in the mix for the final team time trial, have to be aggressive tomorrow. It's definitely have to be.
They absolutely do, but it's a very, very different ball game tomorrow, isn't it? Because we've got a flat parkour, so a completely flat stage. So it's one for the sprinters. So teams that perhaps won't get any points today could completely mop up tomorrow. Riders that got dropped early today could play a major part. You know, Caleb Ewan showed his face early on. We were looking at the number of riders transmitting live data today. A fair few of them have already climbed off. Sepp Van Mark, poor guy, lasted just several kilometres. His little dot is right back at the very beginning. So absolutely, yeah, tough day at the office, but he can save himself for that sprint stage tomorrow, and then crucially, he's a big old engine, isn't he, for that team time trial on the final day.
I think it just shows. I mean, these riders did have a 40k ride today in the sunshine, didn't they? But do you know what? I think there's a lot of riders in this field who just didn't expect it to be so hard from the off, and clearly the instruction from Tom Steels, as with the director sportif, we'll see some pictures in a minute, no doubt, of him in the team car, just said go full gas, and that is exactly what Quick Step Floors did. Just outside the neutral, it was full gas, the bunch was splitting straight from the off, and again, this breakaway formed very, very early on.
Well, this is an interesting development, Matt, isn't it? It's Veloci here, who's taking on that top tube pedalling style to try and gain a gap between himself and the rest of the riders, and it's not a bad gap. This has been a very close race so far, and he's got around about 50 metres on the road between himself and all of the World Tour riders behind. And I think Nippo Fantini will be very happy with the way things have gone today. And actually, both he and Theo Gegenhardt, and to some degree Carlos Betancourt, have all shown that although this is all about the team side, individual riders are going to have a big effect on the outcome in terms of the bonus seconds and where they're placed at the end of each stage.
Yeah, I think that's taken us all by surprise, hasn't it? This is a team event. It's going to be won by a team and not an individual, but Yeah, fascinating that actually individual riders in a breakaway are still able to effectively put the team as a whole in such a fantastic position. So although we've seen a completely different style of racing, now we're back to something more familiar, aren't we? Where we've got, like you talked about earlier, Matt, effectively the finale of a really big, prestigious classic, because we've got some really tired bodies out on the road.
We certainly have, and I said 31 k's to go. Velocity has now just chipped off the front of this group. Tom de Moulin rides through on the front. It's worth looking at Velocity because, let's be fair, most of us will be familiar with the composition, the makeup of the riders in this group, aside from Velocity himself. But he's Italian, 25 years of age, but was 6th down in the Under-23 World Road Championships back in 2014, and this year actually won the GP Città di Lugano, which is a 1.8C race.
It's a very hard race.
So it's a hard, hilly race. So this rider up in front, although he rides for a lesser team compared to the World Tour teams, you know, he's very, very strong indeed, and an extremely classy rider. And in fact, he's opening up a bit of a gap now.
Yeah, well, I rode the GP Lugano once.
So did I.
I got dropped and DNF'd. That's no proof about how hard the race is, but it was quite hilly. Yeah, Velocity continuing on, and he's just taken a bottle there, or tried to, from the Quick Step Floors squad.
Controversial. You need to watch our video. No link there, so how to take a bottle.
I mean, we made a video about how to give and take a bottle of Musette, but I would imagine we didn't cover, do you give a bottle to a rival team?
Was there a situation there where the Swanee thought, God, if this is on telly, what do I do? Do I give the guy a bottle? Do I pull away? Who knows? I mean, oh God, I mean, I've no doubt the comment section is lit up right now with that.
Okay, let's do that caption competition. Here it goes.
Okay, we've got a caption competition coming your way. Okay, it should be flashing up on your screen now. If you can give us a caption for that, in the next 5 or 10 minutes, we'll get back to your captions. Give us a caption. You will win this.
There you go, Matt.
Thank you very much. It's a Musette, but not only a Musette. It's not we wouldn't give you an empty Musette. Cool, blimey. No, we wouldn't. What we'd do, we'd put a cap in it.
And there's the caption photo. If you give us your best captions of that, Matt will be sporting the prizes that you can win very shortly indeed. So give us your best caption on Facebook in the comments, or indeed YouTube under the comments. This is what you can win: GCN Musette, complete with a cap and a phone cover inside. So get your best captions over to us and we'll pick a winner before the end, or maybe just after the end of our coverage today.
Hello? Yeah, that's fine. I'm wearing a hat and I've got a Musette. I cannot believe it. Yeah, amazing.
Back to the racing then. Velocity is still up front on his own with that chasing group of 6. They're all rolling through and off together, aren't they? But they will hope to catch the Italian from Team Nippo, Vinnie Fantini, before they get to the next crossing of the finish line. 29.6 k's to go now, so this race is going to be over in the region of 45 minutes from now.
It certainly is, and it does look as if most of the points are going to be battled out between that group in front. Here's the current standings: 59.7 points for Mobistar. Of course, Betancourt has got the vast majority of those points. Then Team Sky still in second place. Tergegenhardt in the front group. Then we have BMC, Orica Scott, Sunweb, Nippo, Vinnie Fantini, Quick Step Floors in 7th, and then Lotto Soudal in 8th place. And then the last two scoring teams, Team Lotto NL Jumbo. I think Victor Kampenaerts scored most of the points for the Dutch squad. Then we have Cannondale Drapac with 2.5 points. And then, as we said before, the rest of the teams languishing way behind. There's still a lot of racing to do. I think we've got to be honest with ourselves, Dan. I can't see many other riders now coming into the picture so late in the race.
Well, I've got some information coming through from Cafe Roubaix on Twitter saying that Velocity, as an under-23 Espoir rider, won the Piccola Sanremo and also a winner at the Vuelta a Bidosa, a race which was also won by Contador on a couple of stages. So he's obviously a very good rider. I think he's in his mid-20s now, isn't he?
25, yeah.
25 years of age, and we haven't seen too much of him. Of course, not being a World Tour rider, he's not on our screens as much as some of the other guys of that age, but he's obviously a talented guy, and he's showing that today. And he's perhaps an example on this first day of the Hammer Series of someone that might specialise in something like this.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, of course, this is the first time any of us have ever seen this, and it is a brand new format, you know, and from what I've seen so far, I must admit, I really do hope this kind of catches on, because it's engaging from the start. You haven't got those kind of lulls that we see. Although I'm a massive fan of traditional style of racing, I think add this into the mix, makes things a little bit more exciting. It's multifaceted, it keeps you engaged for perhaps longer periods of time, and I love it because it's brutally hard. I like to see guys suffer. I know that's weird, but I think you'll love it too.
Yeah, in the comment section, a lot of people sharing that love, and people really getting involved in where they want the Hammer series to go next. And a lot of people making the point that actually you don't need an Alpe or a Dolomite to have great racing. You know, you could do it in an urban centre. You know, someone here, Paul Mason, suggested, how about Barcelona racing around Mont?
Oh,
how amazing, epic would that be? And absolutely right, that would
is
be
a cracking circuit.
Yeah, so maybe in the future that could be the future of the Hammer series.
Now keep those comments coming because it's loved. The feedback is so important. It'd be important to Velon as well as they look to shape the series in future years or future months. But fascinating so far. But I'm glad I'm not out on the road. I bet they're absolutely in bits.
Well, it's all back together now in our leading group of 7. You can see Velocity there from Nippo Vini Fantini. Just at the back, having been on a solo mission for the last few kilometres. And Tom Dumoulin forced over to the side onto the gravel, but he's trying to steal a surprise here.
I tell you what, it's not been given any quarter by Stefan Kung there. Although he's already run the Giro, he was forced back. Here we go, the last is about 250 metres to go now. Velocity just being detached as the road starts to pitch up. It's Durbridge on the front now. Theo Gegenhardt in the centre of your screen. Brambilla just on the back. Really starting to grimace now. Who's going to take the points on this one? About 175 metres to go.
Well, it looks like Durbridge is feeling confident this time around. He's leading things out from the front, but could Theo Gegenhardt take his first win across the line? He's been incredibly consistent. Missed out a couple of times now to Carlos Betancourt, who's coming up on the left-hand side of your screen right now. But it seems to me, Matt, that it's the position around this last corner which is crucial. If you're not in the top 2 there, Theo Gegenhardt leading them across the line. Looks like Betancourt's going to come through for second place. Tom Dumoulin in 3rd, Luke Durbridge 4th, Brambilla in 5th, Stefan Kung in 6th, and Velocity paying for his efforts of trying to go solo across in 7th place, the last rider out of this group. But looks like Tom Dumoulin, having done already
flick of the elbow there.
45 kilometres of racing in, he's starting to open up his legs now. And as I said, Matt, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him going on a solo mission at some point. Actually, was that a double points lap? Was that lap 7? I think it was.
I think it was, but double points there for Theo Gegenhardt. I think by my rudimentary calculations in my mind, looking at where Betancourt finished, that could... Well, it's certainly going to take Sky closer to Mobistar. Remember, it's Mobistar first, Sky in 2nd at the moment. We'll get confirmation of that, but certainly that's brought Sky back into the mix. Very close in the end, but great ride by the youngster there. Remember, this is his first year riding at World Tour level. Puts away Betancourt and the Giro d'Italia when those 3 well clear of the others. And that little flick of the elbow there, it was almost as if let's continue through.
Well, is he going to get a bottle here, Velocity? Finally, he gets one from the second soigneur at the feed zone there. But those 4 in front now, pressing on, and 3 riders here behind are going to have to ride flat out and make sure that they don't go into the distance. 2 riders from Movistar here in the group, which comes after our leading group of 7. So they're picking up even more points now on the double points lap, as are Sunweb. So Team Sky, Sunweb, Movistar and BMC really dominating proceedings. And there are a lot of teams, Matt, who very much missed out on today's race, aren't they? Cannondale haven't had anyone up towards the front. Lotto Soudal we haven't really seen since Tim Wellens was dropped from the front part of the group. Quick Step Floors are up here, of course, with Gianluca Brambilla, but I don't think it's gone quite the way that they expected to so far today. But Trek Segafredo, UAE Team Emirates are also the big losers when it comes to the World Tour squads.
Well, Si, with 26k to go, are we seeing, and these are quite remarkable stats, are we seeing a slight diminishing of the kind of power these guys are putting out, or are we seeing them still managing to punch above 1,000 watts?
No, stats say they're very much starting to drop off, actually.
Right,
and I did wonder, looking at Dumoulin the other lap, the previous lap, he was really starting to let a gap grow. I just wonder whether that was a tactical manoeuvre from him. He recognised that the following lap was double points, and therefore he just backed off because he needed to save himself. I think the guys are riding at their absolute limits here, and it's there's probably a few people really trying to think how they can save their legs to get to the finish and get those double points. Before we go, can I just say we've got
Teo's down! Oh, Teo's down!
Sorry, Si.
Sorry, guys.
No, absolutely.
Teo's down. This... Well, blimey. Sorry, Si, blimey.
Alright, he's come down on one of the descents off that climb, and as you can see his chain has come off as well. He's ripped his Team Sky skin suit as well. Let's hope he hasn't injured himself too badly. Let's get a spare bike off for him now. And he's just assessing how much he's injured here at the moment. But that, a bitter blow for Team Sky, as you can see from Theo's reaction there. He was one of the forefront really of the race so far. Just coming too quick into that corner.
A little bit hot into there, cranking it right over. He's on the shoulder.
Oh, he just hits his pedal on the floor.
Was it a pedal or was it his back wheel that went?
No, just pedalled a little bit too early around that corner when his bike was still backed over. As you see, going into the curb at the side there, not a happy man.
No, not at all, of course. He's riding high. Fantastic performance. Theo Geoghegan-Hart, one of the standout riders of the race so far. Bitterly disappointing, but we must point out at this point, you know, it's a racing incident. Didn't quite go right from on that corner, bit of a slight error. He still has to finish this race, has to go deep into the 11th lap, or the last lap, to actually make sure those points actually count. So he needs to keep riding, but I imagine now Dan will get mopped up by what's left of the peloton and just finish safely there.
Well, the points standings at the moment, Movistar dominating proceedings. They've got 84.2. They are just under 15 points clear now of Team Sky. Team somewhere third with 54.4. Orica Scott and Team BMC locked in 5th and 4th place respectively on 49 points apiece. That's something which we hadn't thought about. We talked about riders who picked up points. There's confirmation of the standings on your screen right now. We talked, guys, about riders who would pick up points in the early stages and then get dropped, that couldn't afford to get lapped, because once they get lapped, they're taken out of the race, and unless that happens on the last lap of the race, their points don't count towards the overall standings.
Exactly.
What we haven't talked about are crashes. If you've picked up a lot of points, I mean, Theo Geoghegan-Hart has taken all of Team Sky's points today. If he'd have crashed out there and broken a collarbone, they'd have been down to 0.
They'd have been down to 0 points. I mean, yeah, you are completely right. Thankfully, that isn't the case. He's managed to remount, but certainly he won't be able to make his way back to the front. He's going to be bumped and bruised, bitterly disappointed. But that does change the shape of this race, because there's still a lot of points on offer out on the road. Durbridge now having a chat with his director sportif, probably wanting to know exactly what the composition is behind, perhaps thinking about the tactics, no doubt telling his director sportif how he's feeling, because if he's feeling really bad, they might have to look at what they can do behind. But we've had no information through about the chase, and I think there's only about 25-30 riders left in the bunch anyway.
Well, it's not looking good for the bunch behind, is it? They haven't seen these riders for quite some time. And a big indication about the gap is always the fact that there are team cars in behind, because under UCI regulations, the gap has to be at least 1 minute between two groups for team cars to be allowed in between. Here's Team Sunweb on the radio to Tom Dumoulin, who's out the front in this group, which is now down to 6 riders after Team Sky's Theo Geoghegan-Hart hit the deck on the descent after the last crossing of the finish line.
Guys, in this momentary lull, I wonder whether now is the time to announce the Caption Competition winner. There have been some absolute belters. We saw Paul Pelosi missing another bottle. So let's go for El Gran Coti Caption, who says, give me that. Oh, wait a minute, it's not a GCN water bottle. A good caption, but not the best. Not the best.
Oh, really? That's better than
no, oh, yeah. That? Greg Waite. Is that a mineral water? Which particularly topical, I think, given Lloydie's current situation. Aaron Griffiths. Slippery Floors bid on, which I like. But the winner, and I think you're going to like this, or actually no, runner-up, sorry, there are so many, they're great. Chris Calkins, the lesser-known Slippy Bottle.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was strong. I thought you were going to take it, but just on the line, Rob Simons, Quick Step, really getting into the Hammer Series. Can't touch this.
Oh, there we first MC Hammer reference wins the prize.
Absolutely.
Well deserved. Fantastic choice, Si. Take my hat up to you, mate.
Thank you very much. Rob Simons, get in touch, and we will send you out your GCN musette, your GCN hat, and also the phone case when you're riding.
And we will try and get another caption in as well before the end of the race.
Well, here's a recap of the last couple of laps. This the point where Pelosi just more than nudged, really, didn't he? Pushed Theo Geoghegan-Hart of Team Sky out of the way so that he could make his attack. We're still going to have to wait and see what the commissaires have to say about that after the race is finished. He then went on a solo attack. You can see the GoPro mounted onto the front of his bike. All of the riders, or most of the riders in the race today, are equipped with data transponders and also with cameras. And then just coming through the last time, Theo Geoghegan-Hart, the first across the line. Soon after that though, pushing things a little bit too hard on the descent. Team Sky rider from London, in fact, just lost his front wheel, back wheel should I say, after his pedal clipped the ground, and he's no longer a part of this front group.
Yeah, so he needs to recalibrate, dust himself down and get back in the bunch and make sure he finishes, because that's a good points tally. And of course Team Sky have brought Van Poppel and Elia Viviani to this series of races. And of course tomorrow we'll suit them down to the ground. Of course Viviani himself is the Madison champion, the Olympic Madison, sorry not Madison, Omnium champion, and a very fast finisher. So it's so important, isn't it, that Theo Geoghegan-Hart finishes today to make sure that Sky have got a healthy tally going into tomorrow's race.
Well, down to 6 riders then. We often talk about the whittling down process of professional races, and I guess that is something that the Hammer Series here today has had in common with a lot of other races in the professional calendar, in that we had a very, very fast start. If you've just joined the race, Team Quickstep decided to go on the front with Campenarts. No, sorry, not Campenarts, of course, it was Lampard getting mixed up between the two riders. He set a furious pace along with Gianluca Brambilla on the front in the very opening couple of kilometres of the race. They lined the field out.
Dan, can I just sit on for a bit? I need to sit on for a bit. I am going to sit, I can't come through. I'm just going to carry on. I'm just going to sit on.
Lined the race out, and we very quickly had a select group appearing at the front of the race, and that has, although changed about ever slightly over the last few laps, it has remained fairly constant. We've had some different skirmishes off the front. We're now down to a group of 6, and it certainly looks like they're going to sweep up all of the points, at least for the first 6 riders, over the remaining laps, because we haven't seen any groups from behind.
I have a question for both yourself, Si, and for you, Dan, and for myself, because I don't know what's going to happen. This isn't a traditional race, it's a points race, isn't it? And the winning team will win the event, carry those points onwards. Last lap, last time across the line, it's double points, lap 11. Will the winning rider, because it is a race, put their arms up or not?
Oh, I hope so.
Because it's still a kind of win, isn't it? I mean, I kind of would, because a win's a win.
I think they'll be informed, of course, over race radio about what the situation is in terms of the team's classification, which is what this Hammer Series is all about. So we might see Carlos Betancourt there from Movistar, if things continue as they have been doing so far. If they win the race in terms of their team, wherever he finishes, he might put his
double
hands up.
celebration. Then it's kind of borderline taboo, isn't it? The old double celebration. But you know, arguably, if Betancourt wins it for Movistar, plus we get a different winner over the line, he'd be entitled to.
He would, wouldn't he?
But the whole team is on the podium. Yeah. All the riders that rode today will be on the podium with whichever team is the winner today.
Well, I think the thing that we've learned, and looking at this coverage right from kilometre 0, once they finished the neutralised zone, is that it was full gas right from the very start. You either work hard or you might as well quit.
Just leave it for a second. Nice.
Another caption competition there.
Brilliant. And we've got another caption comment. Yeah, it's a slight. We're just coming up to the finish of this. Let's just bring this in. I mean, say a lull. It's the finish. Here we go. It's our producer Mike in the corner. You've got to love a bit of Mike. He set all this up.
Yeah, Stefan Kung is now the rider on the front, and that hasn't remained constant either, has it? It's been a different rider leading things out, and they're all learning about the best way to come into this sprint finish line at the top of the climb here. 250 metres to go. Looks like it's Betancourt who once again is going to try to get to the front on that final left-hand corner with 100 metres to go, and he's achieved it once again. Is he going to take another set of maximum points? 10 across the line here, just in front of Gianluca Brambilla at the moment. Doesn't look like the Italian's got what it takes to come around the Colombian, but Durbridge coming through for second place on the line for Orica Scott. So it's Movistar 1, Orica Scott 2, closely followed by Quickstep Floors.
Yeah, and Dumoulin just rolled across the line there. Here's the slow motion replay. Betancourt is having a really good day, but this is the sort of course that suits him. Again, haven't quite seen, or hasn't quite fulfilled the potential I think that everybody had hoped, but today he's absolutely flying, looks very, very sharp. Brambilla couldn't match the pace of the Colombian. He crosses the line in first and cements Movistar's lead, because remember, they've still got 2 riders in the group behind scoring points, Carlos Barbero and Marc Soler. Well, sorry, it might be Nelson Oliveira, sorry, and Marc Soler scoring points. And here, this is incredible, Theo Geoghegan-Hart still hasn't been caught by that group, so he still has an opportunity to score points. I've no doubt he'll sit on the wheels. It's Sammy Sanchez of BNC coming through. Still a few points on offer. Rounds that corner. Very, very tight, isn't it? Theo still scores points, so he'll get a few points as he rolls across the line there. And it's Soler. Oh no, it's Sanchez from Soler.
Yeah, one of the oldest riders, in fact, in the race. It's great to see him embracing this in particular, isn't it? Because I think, of course, young riders are very quick to embrace new and modern type of races and different technology, etc. in the sport of professional cycling. But often the veteran riders, those who've been around in the sport for a long time, are much more reluctant to try new things, and they're just quite set in their way. So it's great to see Sammy Sanchez, a former Olympic champion, a rider who must have been professional now for in the region of 15 years, here and really fighting for the points in each and every lap.
No, he knows how important it is. Of course, he's got Stefan Koenig in the front. So BMC are one of the few teams with, you know, relative numerical superiority. They're scoring double points, and I think that every time we've seen Sanchez roll across the line, he has scored a few points. Remember, it is the top 10 teams every time across the line that score points, and still this group roll through. 19.7 k's to go. And I wonder what the riders are thinking now. Are they thinking of trying to stay together? Are they happy to just go for these sprints? Or will we see one of these riders, Tom Dumoulin in particular, I'm thinking about, try and go long?
Well, it'll be interesting to see whether anybody wants to try and make a solo move over the last 3 laps. 19.4 k's to go, but 3 more crossings of the finish line. Let's not forget as well that the last time across for the finish there will be double points allocated. We'll pop over to Sai in just a few moments' time, but if you've just joined us, this is the inaugural Hammer Series race taking place in the Limburg region of the Netherlands, although it does cross into Belgium on a part of each and every lap. Today is the climb, which as you can see is an undulating course of just over 7 kilometres, which they will be tackling on 11 occasions. 78 kilometres the total difference. Tomorrow is the sprint, slightly longer course, slightly longer lap, which they will do a few less times. 8 laps on tomorrow's race, I think, is what they'll be dealing with. And then the final day, this coming Sunday, is the chase, which is essentially a team time trial, which is handicapped. So the team that's done the best over the first 2 days will set off first. Then there'll be a 30-second gap plus whatever time bonuses they've earned over the first 2 days to the second place team, 25 seconds to the third, 20 to the fourth, 15 to the fifth, and 15 to all the teams from that point onwards. So today is the first of a 3-day series, which is going to contribute to where your team starts on the chase on the final day. How are we looking on social media side?
Well, social media is absolutely going off. I've actually just been looking at the composition of this group, and I'm looking at the data basically, and I'm just wondering, we've got some very different rider types in this group, haven't we? And so, how are you expecting the next 20k or so to play out? Because you've got a pursuiter with Stefan Koenig, haven't you? You've got a Grand Tour winner with Tom Dumoulin. You've got a sprinter with Brambilla. You've got a classics man with Durbridge. How are people going? Because they're going up the climbs a little bit slower now and then sprinting for the top. I think that's clear as people are getting tired. What do you think is going to be the case? We're seeing it start to split and an attack's coming. Are we going to get more of that, do you reckon?
I think we might see some attacks coming. You can see that Brambilla, clearly Ventoux is climbing very, very well indeed. You see the bunch behind. They're looking at asking for a time gap here. Philippe Gilbert just on the front of that group. I'd estimate they're probably about 2.5, maybe even 3 minutes behind now,
I'd have thought,
roughly. 3 laps to go for what is left of the peloton. But I have a feeling, as I say, fatigue is starting to set in. We're just seeing Filosi going clear. He's very, very aggressive, is the young rider from Italy. But I have a feeling that we might see Tom Dumoulin try and go along. And I think Dumoulin's, you know, he's buoyed by that success. He's riding on home soil here in Maastricht, of course. And he's clearly in extremely good form, and the fact he's in this front group, I think he's going to want to score as much as he can. I think he must have some sort of strategy, but he does need to go long. He doesn't have that kind of sharp punch that we see Brambilla and Bettencourt have, and if he wants to score more points, he needs to go clear. And I think as these laps tick by, it's going to become more and more in his favour to try and go long.
Well, clear hierarchy now in the standings for the teams. We've got Movistar at the head of affairs with 96 points. They are around 24 points in front of Team Sky. In fact, exactly 24 points. Team Sunweb in third, courtesy mainly of Tom Dumoulin's efforts, who you can see there on the left-hand side of your screen. The recent winner of the Giro d'Italia. They are 35 points behind Movistar. Orica Scott's in fourth, and it's quite close between them and BMC Racing, who are in fifth, and Nippo Vini Fantini currently in sixth place. A surprise performance from that team, ahead of Quick-Step Floors no less, but down mainly, or in fact uniquely, to the man at the back of the group there, who is Filosi, the Italian 25-year-old riding for that team. And the Quick-Step Floors soigneur there, giving him a bottle this time around.
He gave him a bottle. He actually got it first time round, but I'd imagine, given these humid and hot conditions, your hands are going to be pretty sweaty. It is quite easy. It's easy for us to have a bit of a laugh about it, but sometimes it does happen. You know, riders aren't perfect. We do get feeds when you do miss bottles, but thankfully Filosi has got a bit of a bottle there, making sure he's taking on plenty of fluids And I think it's worth repeating, this really does have the feel as if we're kind of 4 or 5 hours into a race. They've only just been racing just over, have they been racing for an hour yet? Just over an hour of racing, and this field spread all over the countryside. But when are we going to see an attack from this group? Will it come? Or was Tom Dumoulin pretty much just riding on fumes? 3 weeks in the saddle, of course, in the Giro d'Italia. He's going to have to be tired, but clearly inspired to try and show himself off in front of home fans, I guess.
We've got a question from Diane Crabtree on the YouTube comments. She's wondering about that crash of Tao Geoghegan Hart. It's going back to this old unwritten rules scenario. Should the group have waited for Tao Geoghegan Hart? I think it's fair to say definitely not in this situation. Basically, it's the race is on, it's every rider for themselves, and he fell off out of rider error, I think it's fair to say. What do you reckon, Jeff?
I mean, it didn't look as if there's any grease in there. I think Dan caught him maybe clipping a pedal, and when you go around a corner, you generally a left-hand corner, you'd have your right foot in the 6 o'clock position, and if you do pedal around a corner when your bike is cranked over, there's a risk that your pedal could clip the ground and throw you off. And there was a definite skip in Tao's back wheel there. Again, I've no doubt he'll after the race actually say what happened. If he didn't clip his pedal, he just basically banked the bike over just a bit too far, so that tyre grip trade-off just failed and he laid it down. But he certainly was coming into that corner pretty hot, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's certainly his own fault, and I think he'll be the first to admit that when we get to interview after he crosses the line. There's been a lot of talk about the unwritten rules, hasn't there, over the last month and indeed the last couple of years really, but the trouble with the unwritten rules is they're quite unclear. We've never seen them written down in black and white to know exactly what they are, but in general it seems to relate to someone that's leading a race in the GCs, and more like Tom Dumoulin when he had his situation, shall we call it, on stage 16 of the Giro d'Italia this year. But again, I was quite in agreement really that they shouldn't have waited for him there. Otherwise, if they'd have waited, any GC leader of a race could just pull to the side of the road, so they got a dicky stomach before the crucial point, because that was the Queen stage and it was the crunch point of that stage as well.
And I know that there was a bit of a war of words after that, wasn't there? But I think the big war of words was on that stage where all of the GC riders neutralised themselves, and Thibaut Pinot managed to get up the road and snatch nearly a minute in about 2.5 kilometres. But I mean, Tom Dumoulin himself had no real complaints about poo gates really, and nor did a couple of his teammates. I spoke to a couple of his teammates following the stage, and they was like, "Hey, it's racing." He had an unfortunate situation. So, and to directly tackle that question, I think it's rider error, and the riders are going to continue on without them.
Just as I reach over and get down a beer out of the fridge.
Caption. Let's get the caption in. Go,
all right, okay.
Our producer, Mike.
There you go.
Oh, right. Here's the caption.
Oh, right, it's blimey. Whoa! Simon looks absolutely terrified in that picture.
We'll get your captions in on Facebook or YouTube for the picture that you see on your screen right now, and we'll be giving away more GCN swag to the best caption that we get before the end of the race. Back in the team car with Orica Scott, it's Matt Wilson, the sports director from that team, who is giving instructions to Luke Durbridge and the rest of his team about their tactics for the day. But it will be continually evolving, won't it, the tactics for all of the teams today. But I think what it comes down to, what we've seen so far, is who's got the legs. I'm not sure tactics are involved whatsoever. Tom Steels was kind of right, the sports director from Quick-Step Floors, before the race even started. Race like your 16-year-olds again. There are no tactics today. It's just go flat out, go full gas from the gun and see what happens.
I think it was almost like let's just see what happens. There's no point in playing this too tactically. Let's just put some guys on the front, rip this to shreds, some sort of natural selection, and then once there's this established natural selection of riders, let's just recalibrate and look at tactics from that point in. And basically on this particular course, it is a very particular course, very particular style of riding. Now the cream has risen to the top, and like Simon picked up on earlier on, there's a real mix of riders. Although it's a punchy, hilly course, you've got TT specialists, rulers, climbers, punchy riders as well in the mix, which makes it even more fascinating about the way this is going to play out in the next few Ks.
Well, there you can see Group 2 over a minute back, 1 minute and 18 seconds between the group of 6 on your screen right now. Filosi in the orange there for Nippo Vini Fantini, Brambilla in the blue of Quick-Step Floors. We've got Carlos Betancourt, the Colombian there from Movistar, in the very dark green. BMC represented by their Swiss rider Stefan Kung, and they're being informed now of the gap to the group behind. Number 91 is the Giro d'Italia victor from just under a week ago, Tom Dumoulin, and finally rounding out this 6 at the front is Orica Scott's Luke Durbridge of Australia. And they've got to that point now, Matt, where they know that they've got more than a minute's lead and advantage over anybody else on the race today, and so they're being much more coy as they come up towards the finish line each lap.
You can just tell they're just backing off the power. In the previous, the initial few laps, they were actually ripping up this climb very, very fast indeed. Now they're just knocking the pace a bit, thinking about position, thinking about saving their effort for that sprint. They've only got a couple of corners now before they round that final corner, about 125 metres to go, and it is Carlos Betancourt in prime position. Stefan Kung goes. This is now where the riders will start to lean on the pedals. Durbridge on the inside. He's had a remarkable season so far in the Classics as Durbridge. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But here we go, all across the road. Dumoulin goes on the outside. The first time we've seen him take the lead. He looks like he's going to lead into this final corner.
Yeah, it's been a slow burner really for Dumoulin. He did well to be in this group right from the get-go. Haven't seen him win one of the sprints yet, but he's going around this last corner now just behind Betancourt, who's been incredibly consistent so far in this race. Looks like Betancourt is going to take the win yet again. Dumoulin, though, getting stronger as the laps tick by. 2 laps to go now, Matt. 13.8 kilometres left of this race, and Betancourt has pretty much won this now for Team Movistar. We'll wait now for the official rankings between the teams after they've crossed the line now for the 9th time out of 11. But I've got a feeling that it's going to be mathematically pretty much impossible for any team to get the better of Movistar now.
Yeah, I think the only way that's going to happen is if Movistar have some sort of freak accident. But no, they just... slow motion replay of Betancourt. We know he's a very, very punchy rider. This is the best, I think, Dan, to say the least, we've seen him ride in a couple of years. And of course, he's backed up by having 2 riders in that group behind, so they're mopping up points as well. So Movistar in real prime position. But of note, this is one of the best positions we've seen Dumoulin. Dumoulin before the start said he's going to come better in the second half of the race. This is the fight, the scrap for the minor placings. Tao Geoghegan Hart just takes the points for Sky, so still chipping away and scoring points for Team Sky. That's good to see.
It is, but they'll be bitterly disappointed, as will Tao, of course, himself, that he crashed out of that front group. Otherwise, he'd be picking up far more points. The fact that he has crashed, Matt, and as you can see, his skin suit is ripped there, and he's still winning the sprint behind, still got enough energy left to take those sprints, just goes to show that he would have been a big part of that front group in terms of the way that things played out.
No, definitely. He's had a good start to the year with Team Sky. He's done a very good ride earlier on in Mallorca, then of course a standout performance at the Tour of California, but looking mightily impressive today, and who knows what might have been had it not been for that fall. There's Victor Campenaerts at the back of this group, one of the early protagonists. He did look like he's in a lot of difficulty, and in fact this group behind, Dan, have actually closed 1 minute and 3 seconds. It was up to 1 minute and 16 seconds. Well, there were 12 Ks to go. I think it is going to be difficult for that group to actually make contact with the front group, unless, of course, they really start playing cat and mouse and just start thinking about the points and not needing to press on.
Well, the tactics for tomorrow are going to be interesting for the sprint, and we'll get onto that after this race is finished. But Movistar now with a 33-point gap for Team Sky. So I think we can pretty much say that Movistar are going to be the winners of today's climb. Team Sky in second place. Just a few points behind them now are Team Sunweb, courtesy of Tom Dumoulin's efforts. And I think they could well move into second place before the end of the race. And it's then a further 8 points back to Orica Scott, with Durbridge represented in the front group. Fifth place at the moment, BMC Racing. They are a full 46 points now behind Movistar. And that is a huge gap.
Yeah, it is. They're going to have to really get Gaviria firing tomorrow. Of course, Gaviria amongst their number for the sprint day tomorrow. But it's Gianluca Brambilla represented. He definitely has faded a little bit, was very, very sharp over the last few laps. But it's Tom Dumoulin who seems to me to be the rider with most strength alongside Carlos Betancourt. But has Carlos Betancourt gone a bit too deep? Will he start to fade near the end? Remember, a couple more ascents off this climb. Simon?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Betancourt there. The comments in Facebook, there's a lot of support for Betancourt. Daisy Vermeulen says she hasn't seen him this good in years. Or in fact, she said she hasn't seen Betancourt like this in years, which I suppose is the similar thing. But actually, it's more the fact that he's in the race, he's aggressive, he clearly wants it. And then over on YouTube, Melanderix, Betancourt is insanely good today. And it's true. I mean, it's brilliant to see him like this, isn't it? It's, you know, he's a bit up and down, but this is fantastic.
No, I think the important thing for the Hammer Series is to see some of the best riders in the world. There's a real mix of talent, a real mix of riders' attributes, but you've got the Grand Tour winner, and this wasn't an easy break to get in. We just see, you know, the class of rider that were detached very early on. This breakaway or this lead group, it's been very, very hard fought for, and it is good to see some of the finest riders in the world in the mix, you know, really making a race of it, and it is quite a fascinating spectacle, and I'm really looking forward to the next couple of days as well, must admit.
Well, I guess at this point in the race, now that we can see the clear hierarchy and the fact that Movistar look like they're going to take the honours on the climb, which is day 1 of 3 here, we should start to talk about what that means for them as a team when it comes to Sunday's chase, which is the team time trial. There you can see the points gap between Movistar and Team Sky. There's exactly 33 points now between the two of them, and with just 2 laps left, I guess it would be mathematically impossible for Team Sky to launch in front of Movistar. Theo Gegenhardt took maximum points on the final 2 laps, with double points on the last lap. But the way things are on the road at the moment, it is nigh on impossible for anybody to overtake Team Movistar. So they are going to be picking up 15 bonus seconds at the end of today's race, and that will be taken off their time on the chase on Sunday. So what we've got is a 30-second initial time gap difference between the first team off and the second team off. Then it's 25, then it's 20, then it's 15 for the rest of the teams. There are 2 groups on Sunday. But, of course, the teams behind are also going to have their bonus seconds as well. But we're thinking that the first team off on Sunday for the chase is going to have in the region of anything from sort of 32 seconds to 38 seconds advantage over the second team out on the road.
Well, I mean, it would be interesting to see the course and the actual parkour in terms of, you know, your line of sight, because there are going to be some teams, especially further down the field where the gap is only 15 seconds, that can actually see the team in front, and that's something that we've never seen before, because generally in team time trials, in Grand Tours or in stage races, the teams go off at 2 or even 3 minute intervals, and including that's the same in the World Championships. We do occasionally see teams pass each other, but those teams of course are 8 or 9 riders strong. But this is going to be very, very interesting to see. Teams of 5 in full TT formation with other teams in sight, and maybe 2 or 3 teams. If there's a long straight bit of road for a kilometre and a half, there's going to be 3 teams in the mix. It is going to be real. Again, I think Velon called it a fox and hound sort of chase. It's going to be fascinating to see how teams pace that final stage, but also to give themselves as much advantage as they can. That's why they've got to fight for these points as well. So it's a really interesting, fascinating concept.
Well, just before we come up to the penultimate climb to the finish and the penultimate crossing of that finish line, what's going on the comment side?
Well, obviously a lot of people getting involved in the Caption competition that is still running. I don't know whether we can have 2 MC Hammer tribute Caption winners, so I'm going to have to give you Lance...
We'll have to go with 3 then.
Well, Lance Oldstrong's effort. If you're a fan of MC Hammer's Hammer Time, then you will know that he has just put a genius slant on this. Basically, why would I ever stop watching this? Everybody knows GCN ain't no hype. They're gold on the road, they're magic on the mic. Watch it now, Hammer Time. Genius.
Give that man a musette.
Well, alright, so Lance, you've got yourself a cheeky little bonus musette, but I think we keep the Caption competition open a little bit more, because mainly most people seem to be thinking that my expression is something to do with telling Dan there's no more mineral water left. So it's probably accurate, actually.
What is the situation in the giant fridge?
Oh, it's comfortably okay. I believe Dan stocked it up. No, we're absolutely fine.
That could be a nightmare.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Well, as we come up towards the penultimate crossing of the finish line, still our group of 6 lead. As you can see, it's just over the 1 minute mark between them and the group which is chasing behind. Group 2 on the road, of course, containing Theo Gegenhardt and Team BMC's Sammy Sanchez, a former Olympic champion. So that's the lowest that the gap has been now for quite some time. And here is that chase group, in fact, with Victor Campenaerts there at the back. You can see Theo Gegenhardt in the black and blue of Team Sky. 2 riders there from the Movistar squad. So we've got Oliveira as well as Soler, Portuguese and Spanish respectively. So they've also, of course, contributed a massive amount to the points today. It's mainly been Ventoux at the front, but in sweeping up a few of the minor placings inside the top 10 behind, of course, the front group being 6, this group being 5, most of the riders are picking up points on each and every lap, and Movistar have played a blinder today, haven't they?
They have, and this is, as you say, it's a team event. It's all about team riding, and if you can get numbers in front, it makes it so much more advantageous. Although Betancourt has been winning the vast majority of these sprints, with the fact he's got the riders behind, he doesn't actually need to. Of course, he needs to get as many points as he can, but when you've got 2 riders behind also scoring points just because they happen to be in the top 10 on the road, it's a fantastic situation. So Movistar really in prime position now. Some great riding by them.
Well, they can start to relax now in effect, can't they? Because if Ventoux picks up top 3 placing the next time across the line, which is in about 1 kilometre from now, they will mathematically have won the race.
Bosh, big attack here from Victor Campenaerts, probably buoyed, well, maybe disappointed by the fact he's not in a long-term relationship with the girl that he expressed he wanted a date with. Big attack.
I thought his first date was tonight.
No,
apparently he's already had it. They're going to remain friends.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have brought that up.
But Campenaerts has been kind of just sitting on the back of that group and is now attacked. He's going to try and cross this gap. And you know, when you think about the calibre of Victor Campenaerts, you've got a bit of a reminder. He is the Belgian TT champion. Very, very strong rider indeed. And looking at the tempo being set at the front here, could he cross the gap in 8Ks?
Well, it's now come under the 1 minute mark for the first time in about 4 laps since this group initially split up. And you can see, once again, no commitment at the moment. They're all looking at each other as they come up towards the penultimate crossing of the finish line. The riders who haven't got the biggest punch on them will be starting to think about maybe, you know, possibly attacking them a bit earlier, you know, outside of the 250 metre to go marker to catch the others by surprise and try to take maximum points. And the group behind now has split under the impetus and from the attack of Campenaerts. He has taken Theo Gegenhardt clear, as well as one of the Team Movistar riders, and they're actually coming up to the back end of that front group. 45 seconds now, Matt. They're coming up to the team cars who are following our leading group of 6 riders, and it could be coming back together.
Well, definitely. I think that the riders in front, obviously fatigue is starting to set in, as it's setting in with all these riders, but they're definitely thinking about making sure they're as fresh as possible. Nobody's attacked this group, which to me is a little bit of a surprise, but perhaps just an indicator of how brutally hard this race has been. Perhaps they're just happy to try and I don't know, sit in the wheels, try and save a little bit of energy and sprint the best they can. Perhaps none of these riders is confident enough in their ability to lead this group and try and time trial to the finish. So, but yeah, this little bit of a lull in proceedings has certainly opened the door behind, and you can actually see the riders behind Campenaerts and Theo Gegenhardt are about 25 seconds behind, and they can see them just up the road. This could all come back together.
Well, it's a bit too late, isn't it, for a few of the teams who've missed out today, because the points, of course, the majority of them have already been allocated out there on the road, and they're just coming up now to about 300-400 metres to go until the finish line for the penultimate time. The next time they come up here, Matt, will be the last time for the climb stage today. There you can see exactly where they are on the road. They've got that right hand bend coming in about 100 metres time, and then that's an all-important left-hand corner coming up towards the finish line. After that left-hand corner, it's reasonably flat towards the finish line, but here's that group of 3, Campenaerts, Nelson Oliveira, as well as Theo Gegenhardt, who are about to make contact with this front group. And I think actually that if they start sitting up here at the front after their sprint, we could be back to a group of 9 here now.
I definitely think you're right. It says 33 seconds. There's certainly not 33 seconds to the riders behind, but we've got a sprint on hand. It is. Looks like it's Tom Dumoulin leading through at the moment. Betancourt on the inside. Who is going to be the rider that takes the first line? It is going to be Betancourt again. It's been absolutely untouchable. Opens up a couple of lengths. Luke Durbridge is in 3rd position. Again, Betancourt, real economy of effort. So strong. Takes the win. It looks like it's Dumoulin in 2nd. Durbridge in 3rd. Oh, a very tight sprint there. Filossi just took it from Bambia, and then we have Stefan Kung. And then next up, just not too far behind at all, Theo Gegenhardt's having a rip-roarer of a day today with Oliveira on his wheel, and Campenaerts perhaps paying for that early effort at the bottom of the climb.
Well, we can now officially name the winner of day 1 of this race. It is the Movistar squad of Spain. They are going to take themselves 15 seconds in terms of bonuses into the last stage, which is the chase coming up this Sunday. We've still got the sprint tomorrow where more bonus seconds are up for grabs. To remind you, 15 bonus seconds for the first team today. It then goes 12, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2 and 1 until 10th place on the day. So shortly we'll get another graphic as to where each of the teams sit.
Yeah, well, there's Stefan Kung just fighting to get back into contact again. He's a real good time trial rider. He won't panic. He's a similar rider in terms of his economy of effort than Tom Dumoulin. Not such a good climber, but won't panic. Just pacing himself to get back in contact. In just a couple of metres time, he'll be at the back of that group. It's actually Luke Durbridge who's accelerating on the front. Hasn't won one of the climbs yet, but clearly feeling strong, and he has had a remarkably good year this year. Was up there in Strada Bianca and won the individual time trial in the 3 days of De Panne as well. So I think one of the strongest seasons we've had from Luke Durbridge, pressing on at the front.
Well, what is interesting is how Tom Dumoulin of Team Sunweb has developed over this race. I mean, by all intents and purposes, you would have forgiven him, wouldn't you, if he hadn't gone flat out today and if he'd just succumbed to all that he'd put into the Giro d'Italia over the previous 3 weeks, which ended last Sunday. But he's been really up for this. I mean, he was brought up and he does live in Maastricht, which is just 23 kilometres from where we are today for the race. So he's obviously motivated on home roads, but it's great to see him right up there. And he's steadily progressed, hasn't he, from the opening part of the race where he managed to make it into the front group but wasn't really managing to pick up too many points. For the last 2 laps he's been second across the line. The only person that's dominated this race is Carlos Betancourt.
Yeah, Betancourt, we know he's a very punchy rider, very, very quick. You know, he can win from a small group, especially up climbs. So this course is almost, if you look at any rider who this course could be designed for, I think picking a rider out of this group would be Blambier or Carlos Betancourt. But as we saw over the last 3 weeks, over the last couple of years, Tom Dumoulin is a rider that knows himself inside out. He predicted that before this race that he'd come into it, it's a different concept. He said he'd struggle early on and he would get better as it goes on. And again, he just knows himself very, very well. He knows the sorts of effort that he needs to make, and he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger.
Well, 1 lap to go, Matt. What do you see in terms of the way that things are going to play out from here to the finish? It's splitting up on this descent. We've got Teo. That was the corner where he crashed, of course, but he made it round. He's chasing back on to our leading group. Campanart in the yellow there from Team Lotto NL Jumbo, just struggling to make his way back up to the group, which essentially he took clear of the chasing group behind it. They're almost in touching distance now of the leading group. We're getting confirmation of the points gap. Over 40 points now between Movistar and Team Sunweb. So it's 1 for them, but only 9 points separating Sunweb in second to Orica Scott in fourth. Team Sky still in third place, courtesy of all the points that have been picked up by Teo Geoghegan-Hart. So as things stand, Movistar will be taking 15 points. That is confirmed. Team Sunweb will be taking 12 bonus seconds into the final day's team time trial, the chase. Team Sky will be taking 10. Orica Scott would be taking 8. But those positions from second to fifth could be changing still before the finish.
Yeah,
double points this time.
Yeah, double points this time round. Teo Geoghegan-Hart has got back in contact despite that form has been looking good. But before we head to the final climb, the final time across the line, any more comments, Si? That I mean, I know the comment section has been lit up.
Yeah, absolutely it has. Facebook, Peter Link has asked, what's that hissing noise in the background? Does someone have a puncture in the GCN studio?
Yeah.
We should clarify, we've got a fan in here because it's currently 31 degrees on the clock, so it's a little bit warm in here. We've got some, there's a lot going on. We're excited basically, aren't we? The temperature's red hot in here.
It is.
But then Louis-Pierre Rich has asked a really interesting question actually. Or rather, he said he's surprised a lot of the non-ranking teams aren't working together behind in the peloton, which is a good point. Normally, we'd see that, wouldn't we? In in a normal pro race, we would see teams that have missed the move working to get it back.
We would, but I think, look, the last time we saw the bunch, or I counted about 30 to 33, 34 riders, and there was no more than 2 riders from each team in that group. There's another 50 or so, 40 or 50 riders out the back of that group, so no real cohesion at all. And I think that is the reason why this is such an unusual, aggressive format. It doesn't basically, the normal rules of racing, do you know what? They do not apply, and that's what distinguishes this event from any other. It's fascinating, and we've seen Campanarts out the back and now attacked off the front. Good attack here by the Belgian.
Yeah, Campanarts, who was struggling to hold on to the coattails of Teo Geoghegan-Hart and the rider from Movistar, Nelson Oliveira. He managed to get back onto this group and he didn't waste any time in going straight around them and going on the attack. So Lotto NL Jumbo, it's only really been him that we've seen at the front. Of course, at the start, we had Lars Bohm up there on the first lap, but he hasn't played any further part really in this race. I guess the difference between the guys in the bunch working behind on normal races versus this one is that under normal circumstances the early break consists generally of people who aren't the best in the race, whereas here, because of the nature of the race and the way that things would flat out full gas right from the gun, the riders in front are the best riders in the race, and so it's always going to be very difficult, particularly on this technical circuit with the climbs, for anyone to make a concerted chase behind and make any inroads into the gap.
Well, the situation that's playing out now is absolutely fascinating. Of course, Victor Campanarts has gone off the front. You know, I'm going to repeat it. Just if any of you joined us very late, Victor Campanarts is off the front for Lotto NL Jumbo. They haven't scored a lot of points today. He was dropped from the front group. He's a fine time trials, but he has gone clear, but he poses no threat at all to Movistar, Team Sky or Sunweb, so they've essentially let him go. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, he's used that opportunity. It looks like, if, oh, he nearly checked round that corner, came into that a little bit too hot, but he's got about 10 seconds on the group behind. He's a rider that can stay away, but the riders behind, they're just thinking about the points for that. Well, they're thinking about their points, not so much the threat that Victor Campenaerts poses.
Maybe he's got something written on his chest today, and he's literally, you know, he wants to cross the line, arms in the air, unzip his jersey, and maybe give us all another message.
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would be wonderful.
Do you know what? I hope he has got a message for us.
Well, maybe, do you think it would be Darton and then another girl's name? Since Carleen decided that they should just be friends.
Just a massive whatevs. Who knows?
Yeah,
but meanwhile,
exactly.
Campenaerts is in the lead with 1.9k to go.
Yeah, the start of the final climb up towards the finish, and he has got in the region of 12 or 13 seconds of a gap over this group behind, still being led by Team Movistar, despite the fact that they have won this stage already, if our calculations are correct. There are double points on offer this time around, so 20 points for the first rider across the line, but their lead over the rest of the teams in this race, double that at the moment. So Movistar crowned as winners of the first day of the Hammer Series, the inaugural Hammer Series here in the region of Limburg. You can see Carlos Betancourt just on the radio there to Nelson Oliveira. They obviously still want to try and take maximum points here at the end, just to show their dominance. Yeah,
they certainly do, but I think that the rider with most to gain here, and we saw how sharp he was Theo Geoghegan Hart. If he scores more points than Tom Dumoulin, because the gap between Sunweb and Team Sky is only a narrow one, because Dumoulin early on was scoring far less points than Theo Geoghegan Hart. He crashed, as obviously Team Sunweb have now caught up, but if with the double points on offer, if Theo Geoghegan Hart is sprints in a moment like he did earlier on, he could actually overhaul Sunweb. So it is going to be a fascinating battle for second, third and fourth spots. But meanwhile, Campenaerts is now going well clear. It looks as if he could take maximum points on this final ascent.
So we will get to see whether or not he raises his arms aloft as he crosses the line.
Yeah.
I don't think he will, because he knows, as we know, that this series is all about the teams. It's not about the individual riders.
Right, okay, quick sweepstakes, 1.1k to go. Simon, do you think he might give it a tiny little, kind of a little mini punch?
Oh, if he takes this, both arms are in the air, no, full on.
Would you do that?
Yeah, I probably would, you know.
A win's a win.
A win's a win.
Dan, what do you reckon? A mini punch, no hands, or a double hander?
No, it's just a mini punch at the very most.
I think just a mini punch, but he hasn't got an underjersey on. Has he got something written on his bare chest?
You've got to acknowledge the crowd. Come on, you know. Otherwise, it's just a case of, you know, just a damp squib. He's a showman. Oh, is it Betancourt?
It's a bazooka.
Oh.
Carlos Betancourt attacking the group that he remains with, or has done until 900 metres to go. He's got quite the gap to close up to Victor Campenaerts, but if he managed to win this one as well, it would be an incredible show of dominance from the Colombian of Team Movistar. He's got in the lead. Wow, he's just there.
He's going to catch him. There's a bazooka right there. I've seen some bazookas over the last few weeks, but that is mightily impressive. If he's not careful, he's going to shoot off into the hedge. He's going so quick around that hairpin. Absolutely impressive. Nothing anybody can do about it. I think he's going to go past Campenaerts as if he's riding to the shops.
Well, what an incredible performance from Carlos Betancourt today. He's a former best young rider at the Giro d'Italia, former winner of Paris-Nice. He's had a couple of bad years in recent times, but he's absolutely on fire today. The last race he did was a Tour Romandy, so he hasn't raced for well over a month now. That finished at the end of April, but the way that he's going today, he must have been training very hard.
Yeah, it looks like he is going to get maximum points here. Campenaerts, I think he does realise he's got Betancourt for company. So Belgium versus Colombia, Lotto Enel Jumbo versus Movistar. As Dan has already mentioned, Movistar are going to be crowned the winners of this race today, the Hammer Climb. But will they crown it with double points at the top to make it a really emphatic victory? But behind, it's a real cat and mouse battle for the minor placings, and of course the all-important placings of the final time trial.
Well, as they come up to the finish line of the race, it's Campenaerts who's going to get overtaken by Carlos Betancourt, who must have won around about 5 of the laps out of the 11 that they had in the race today. This is the climb. 11 laps of 7 kilometres. He was banging his front wheel on the floor in delight, isn't he, Carlos Betancourt? He knows he's going to come around the finish, and he, I would dare say, will put his arms aloft, because he's kind of won the race for Movistar today.
I think it's legitimate. Here he comes down the finishing straight to a very appreciative crowd. Betancourt Will he give it a final glance? He gives it the 2 arms because he's won, and Movistar have won. And the sprint for second place looks like it's going to be taken by the butterfly from Maastricht himself, Tom de Moulin, with Durbridge in 3rd, and Campenaerts holds on for 4th.
Stefan Kuhn rolling across the line in 5th, Theo Geoghegan-Hart. Unlucky really that he couldn't take more points in the end after a crash. He rolls across the final finish line in 6th place, and Gianluca Brambilla leading home what I would imagine is quite a disappointed Quick-Step Floors squad in around about, what, 8th or 9th place there? 9th place I think for Bettencourt today on the finish line, but it's all about the teams. Movistar win the day. We'll just have to get the calculations up onto the screen fairly shortly now to see who was the 2nd place team, but Movistar carrying 15 bonus seconds into the chase, which is the final day's team time trial pursuit in effect. Well, let's see who's got the 12 seconds bonus and the 10 for 2nd and 3rd.
Sorry.
I was going to say, do you think actually this is obviously a learning experience for the teams because you know they've never done it before? Just looking at the team lineups that people have brought, do you think some people have underestimated the difficulty here? You've got Quick-Step, they've got obviously a cracking team, but no one of the like of a Bettencourt in terms of his ability and his climbing prowess. I mean, arguably Brambilla is solid, talented rider.
Gilbert, they had Gilbert at the start. I mean, blimey, these short, sharp climbs should suit Philippe Gilbert, but I think it's just the ferocity at the start that caught a lot of riders underway. Sepp van Mark, he went within a kilometre. I don't think it's necessarily the composition of the team. I think it's the style of racing, perhaps. But I don't know.
Possibly, but then you've got the big losers, haven't you? Like like the Trek Segafredo team. Did they bring a rider that was solid enough on the climbs for this first stage? And are they then going to be able to make amends tomorrow? And are Movistar going to be outgunned on the sprint stage?
Yeah, because Movistar don't really have an out-and-out sprinter, and I think perhaps they've looked at that. I mean, they've got Bico, Soler, Alex Dowsett, of course, former world hour record holder Oliveira, Galatera, Bettencourt and Barbero. Maybe they went out and thought, right, we're going to try and score as many points as we can in the first event because we are going to be limited in our options on the sprint stage. So that's why they've gone out all guns blazing and perhaps have hit it hard for that particular reason.
Well, we got the rider there from Team Sunweb just attacking to get the final points, we think. 9 riders we think have already crossed the line today. That looks like Leonard Kamner, who's going to take the final points available in this first day of the race. But no, you're right, this is all about the team time trial at the end on Sunday, and about how many bonus seconds and how much time you can have between yourself and the other riders on the road when it comes to that final day's time trial. Movistar, although they don't have the sprinters perhaps for tomorrow's flatter part of the race, for Sunday they've got a pretty strong team time trial squad. They've made massive improvements in that discipline over the last couple of years. But with Marc Soler there, the former winner of the Tour de l'Avenir, Alex Dowsett, who wasn't in today's race but will be in tomorrow's presumably, and of course for the team time trial on Sunday, a big specialist when it comes to the individual and team time trials. And also Nelson Oliveira, who's a multiple Portuguese champion in that discipline. They've got a very strong squad for Sunday.
For my money, actually, I think the 2 big winners today are potentially Orica Scott and Team Sky, because they have got very strong squads on paper tomorrow, haven't they? So Orica Scott have got Caleb Ewan, but then they've also got a very strong team to support him, with big engines like Matt Heyman, Mitch Docker. Then Team Sky have got Olympic points champion Elia Viviani, who surely is made for a race like tomorrow. And again, they've got some really big engines to back him up too. So, so those 2 teams that have scored really well today and can potentially do better tomorrow are looking very, very well placed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've got Viviani said that they've got 2 riders, Team Sky tomorrow, can score points, like Van Poppel as well. So they've got engines, they've got the riders that can deliver these riders to line for the points. And interestingly, it's less laps tomorrow. It's 11 laps today, 8 laps tomorrow, so slightly less points on offer, but still the same kind of system. Of course, the top 10 teams will score the bonuses to go towards the final time trial, but only 8 opportunities to score points as opposed to 11 today. And I wonder if that will affect the dynamic a little. But it's for me, as you've seen in solo, just crossing the line of the Italian champion, it has been fascinating to watch. I mean, absolutely fascinating.
Right, well, we've got confirmation as to the final standings after day 1 of 3. As expected, Movistar with a very convincing win in the end from Team Sunweb. Their lead just under 46 points over the German squad. Team Sky in 3rd place, courtesy really just of Theo Geoghegan-Hart. They were at 60 points to Movistar, so they will be picking themselves up 10 seconds of bonuses, somewhere with 12. 8 seconds of bonuses will go to Orica Scott, who finished the day in 4th place. BMC in 5th. Surprise from Nippo Vini Fantini to take 6th place on the day. Then Quick Step Floors in 7th. Team Lotto NL Jumbo in 8th. Lotto Sudal in 9th. They pick up just 2 bonus seconds. Here it is coming up on your screen right now. And finally, rounding out the top 10 is the Cannondale Drapac Pro Cycling Team. They pick up a single second of bonuses to take into the final day. So we've already got our hierarchy from day one. As Si and Matt have mentioned, could be completely different tomorrow when it comes to the sprinter stage. If we look at Team Sunweb, they have got a sprinter in Max Walscheid from Team Germany, the huge rider, almost 2 meters tall and about 90 kilograms.
He started today. He started today as well, because he's got pretty sore legs, isn't he? Unless he got off earlier on.
He might well have got off because he wasn't playing a part in it, was he?
Yeah.
There you go, 9th Lotto Sudal, Cannondale Drapac in 10th, and the rest of the teams not scoring a single point today.
Guys, in this momentary lull, should we do the caption competition
Let's
results?
do it. I'm excited. It's been cracking.
GCN Musette. I'm going to need that one that I handed up a beer, Dan, and also a hat and your waterproof phone case. There we go. Some really solid entries again. We've got this cracking one from Brian McGill. Simon is shocked that Dan actually wanted a mineral water, which that probably would be my face if that ever happened. Si almost caught on Bucklegate 2. Yeah, alright, thanks for that one. But I think this one from Tim Logan, we're down to 1 beer, lads. That would be my face. That would be my face. Yeah,
reflected in
anyway,
your face.
We'll stock up for tomorrow,
Please
don't worry. So yeah, anyway, Tim Logan, congratulations. That was a belter of a caption. Get in touch on Facebook and we will get you what we got, Musette?
We've got Musette, a Capolino, which is translated as cap. It's Italian for
thanks
cap.
for that, Matt.
Capolino cap, and a phone case. I don't know what that is in Italian.
Perhaps we can have answers in Facebook comments or YouTube comments. Phone case in Italian, please.
But if you're not fortunate enough to win any of this stuff, any of these prizes, these are available in the GCN shop to get your musettes, caps, and phone case, as well as these rather cool new T-shirts, which I'm quite fond of, in the GCN shop.
Well, here's the answer to one of our questions just coming home now. We've got a trio of Orica Scott riders. Last year's Paris-Roubaix winner Matt Heyman, who we didn't see much at all. We've got Mitch Docker, who had a horrific crash at Paris-Roubaix last year. But we've also got young Caleb Ewan, who did pick up a few points for Orica Scott in the first part of today's climb. So he safely finished, so their points will be intact.
They certainly will. But there's the view of the parcours. Lovely helicopter shot of this beautiful area. And they did threaten rain earlier on. Thankfully, given those hairpin bends, it didn't rain on today's course down. A nicely dry circuit, hot conditions for the riders. But I'll be interested to see what the riders think of this. No doubt we'll have a bit of a debrief, a press conference. I wonder what the director sportifs will be doing in relation to tactics for tomorrow.
One of my first thoughts as the dust begins to settle on day one of the Hammer Series is whether, given how hard the climb stage looks to be, that when teams in the future are selecting their riders, they might just go with one very, very punchy guy who can take the points, a bit like Bettencourt did today. Of course, he had help from Soler and Oliveira in picking up the minor places behind, but basically Bettencourt won that race for Team Movistar. So if you can just put one rider in the race who's very at home when it comes to the punchy guys, it would be a bit of a risk in case he had a puncture or a mechanical problem or a crash or anything like that. But Bettencourt has shown that an individual rider is more than capable of winning the race on day one on the climb for the team, and then perhaps putting more into the team time trial type riders and the sprint type riders, where maybe, we'll see tomorrow of course on the sprint day, but where there's possibly more help can come in from domestiques and from helpers. Yeah,
I think Movistar clearly put a fair bit of thought in, because that's a pretty strong team, but Movistar have 28 riders on their roster, so much strength in depth, and looks like Robbie McEwen is just having a chat with the winning team of the day.
Hay que estar muy bien y bueno, muy contento, muy contento. Venimos haciendo un gran trabajo, el equipo me está ayudando muchísimo y bueno, hoy se ven los resultados de todo este trabajo.
I've trained so hard in the last couple of months.
Me he preparado bastante bien, un equipo como este. La verdad, hay que estar muy bien y bueno, muy contento, muy contento. Venimos haciendo un gran trabajo, el equipo me está ayudando muchísimo y bueno, hoy se ven los resultados de todo este trabajo.
It really is a team race, and Carlos was very well backed up by Nelson Oliveira, and Soler did a great job behind, taking lots of points. Now Nelson, I know you speak English. How difficult was this very short stage, but very, very hard?
And we come here with the idea of winning.
So 77
first step.
And it really is a team race, and Carlos was very well backed up by Nelson Oliveira and Soler. They did a great job behind, taking lots of points. And Nelson, I know you speak English. How difficult was this very short stage, but
and it
very,
was a crazy race.
Yes,
all day full guys up and down.
77
and we won full guys in the beginning. We start.
So
really
Team
fast.
Movistar has won the Hammer Climb. Tomorrow is the Hammer
really
Sprint, so it's a very different thing for you guys looking to defend or rest and wait for the team's time trial, the Hammer Chase.
It was a crazy race. We are here all day full guys up and down. Tomorrow we have and we won, and we are able to make some points. I think tomorrow.
So Team Movistar has won the Hammer Climb. Tomorrow is the Hammer Sprint, so it's a very different thing for you guys looking to defend or rest and wait for the team's time trial, the Hammer Chase.
It's not easy because he's a really good rider here. Tomorrow and the parkour is totally different from today. To make some points, I think tomorrow is
well, congratulations, felicidades to Movistar.
We will try to win this race, of course, in the last day too, but first is tomorrow, and we'll try to win.
Happily, victors of this initial stage, as discussed before, no real sprinters among their team. They're going to be obviously pretty happy with the situation that they're in, Dan, aren't they? But as we said, they've got Alex Dowsett to bring in for their team time trial as well. So they're in a strong position. I think they might concede a few places tomorrow, but they're definitely going to be in the mix as we go into the final on Sunday, you thought?
Yeah, obviously a very happy team there, the first winners of anything to do with the Hammer Series, this being day one, of course. As you rightly point out, they don't really have any sprinters in the team, so I guess what they'll have to hope for tomorrow is a very hard race and one where they're not trying to sprint from a bunch each and every lap. And to be honest, that's what I could kind of envisage happening tomorrow. The fact that it's such a short stage each and every day, tomorrow being around about 88 kilometres in length, is that we might not get a bunch sprint with the likes of Gaviria, Andre Greipel, etc. going for the sprints. If you like, we might get it whittled down and the strongest coming to the front again.
Yeah, I think one of the things as well that we need to take into account is we're used in stage races to seeing teams of 6, 7, 8, 9 riders in the Grand Tour where they're able to take control of the race because there's a common interest. Here, you know, with teams of 5, and let's take Team Sky, a classic example. There are 5 riders in the mix tomorrow. They're going to, no doubt, they're going to play Van Poppel and Viviani. I mean, they're not going to want Viviani and Van Poppel to ride on the front. They're going to want to save them for the sprints, and every other team are going to be in a similar position. And that, you know, with the inability for teams to control the race, provides an opportunity for other riders, you know, and teams without sprinters to go on the attack. I think it's going to be in a very, very aggressive race from the off, and you know, I don't think, Dan, we're certainly going to see, I don't know what you think, Simon, you know, a series of just bunch sprints every lap. I think it's going to break up and come back together until the final lap.
Yeah, I wonder whether this will play out like a style of racing that people don't often get to see on TV, and that is kermesses. So a very traditional type of racing generally found in Belgium, where a lot of the top pros will go to train, and so you get just really, really fast, aggressive racing where the big guys are attacking every lap, and actually you end up with it whittled down until you do have a small group in the finish, even though the race is short and it's generally flat as well. It's a really great style of racing, and so if the Hammer Series can inspire that amongst the pro peloton, then it's going to be a success tomorrow, just like it was today.
No, definitely. What do you think then?
Yeah, tomorrow's going to be another interesting one. I think everyone will be looking back at the way things played out today. I don't think we're going to see anybody particularly relaxed on the start line tomorrow. Before we go into that, confirmation of who's got what bonus seconds after day one. Movistar with 15, Team Sunweb take 12 bonus seconds into the last day, and Team Sky taking 10, etc, etc. But yeah, if we look to tomorrow, no one's going to be hanging back at the start. The thing with 5-man teams is that no one can set out from the start and say, well, we're going to ride through and off and make sure that no one goes up the road, so that our sprinter has got maximum points available each and every time. Because in 5-man teams, if you've got one sprinter, that's only 4 guys to try and control things, and even on a flat course, that's a nigh on impossibility. Oh, definitely. I think, I said, although it's, you know, it is actually rolling, it's not completely flat. There are going to be places that give opportunities for riders to attack, and I think the small amount, well, the low number of riders in the teams is going to make it very, very open racing. And also, what we've got to look at is just the points situation. Now, we've got 9 teams who've scored, and 7 teams who haven't scored any points. They're right on the back foot. You know, teams like Trek Segafredo, a World Tour team, haven't scored any points at all. They're going to want to go on the attack. They've certainly got the firepower. They didn't obviously manage to do much today, but there are several teams, including Cannondale Drapac, that need to go on the attack tomorrow. There's Tom de Moulin.
Some riders crashing out like Team Sky, and a lot of instructions coming from the team directors like your own saying, attack if you can. What were your thoughts when you were told, if you can, why don't you go on the attack?
No. Yeah. Well, I'm happy that it's like, yeah, if you can.
Well, it's a real race of attrition. We saw riders being dropped and then some riders crashing out like Team Sky, and a lot of instructions coming from the team directors like your own saying, attack if you can. What were your thoughts when you were told, if you can, why don't you go on the attack? But it looks like you did enough to move up to second place. It all came down to that final sprint and finishing in front of Hart from Team Sky. But what about the Team Movistar? Just absolutely dominant.
We were all watching each other flying. It was very hard to ride away. Definitely way more explosive than I was after 21 days. But it looks like you did enough to move up to second place. It all came down to that final sprint and finishing in front from Team Sky. It was good. But what about the Team Movistar? Just absolutely considering dominant. This Hammer Series is taking place in your home region, so close to home, with all your home fans, was a tremendous amount of pressure on you to perform. After 21 days
after coming out of the Giro, so tired, but you really stood up to be counted today.
In the front, and I still took some shape with me from the Giro. Maybe not the
considering this Hammer Series is taking place in your home region, so close to home, with all your home fans, was a tremendous amount of pressure on you to perform. You also had your teammate Cumner in that front group. You stood up to be counted today. You put Team Sunweb in a great position going into the next days
some shape
of this
with me
Hammer
from
Series.
the Giro. Yeah, maybe not the explosive. We were together in a bigger group, some shape, and then so we could. I just played. I went full gas and played both. That's all I could do today. So.
Simon, I believe it has. What do people think of the first event then?
Well, it's got to be said, there is a lot of love for the Hammer Series already, and why not? That was, gun to tape, one of the most exciting road races I think I've ever seen. So let's have a selection. Michael Kemp, watching from Hudson, Wisconsin, he said, fantastic race. Jorn Koot said, I enjoyed it from the start till the very last second. James McManus says, well, he liked the commentary for a start, which was very nice, but he also said, I'll see you again tomorrow. So hopefully as many of you as possible will be there tomorrow, and in the meantime, tell all your friends about it that maybe have missed it, because Stage 2 tomorrow will be here on GCN again, and it's going to be a belter. Chris Miller said, hell yeah, totally glued to my screen this morning. And then Don Hyun Jopio said, this race format sent my heart rate to above 160 due to the excitement. Hell yeah. So there we go. That's pretty successful, I think.
Yeah, that's pretty resounding, isn't it? I mean, yeah, I thought it was great. I kind of didn't know what to expect. I thought it'd be aggressive, but I didn't really think the teams would take it by the scruff of the neck like they did. I mean, it was absolutely brutal. And as we said right at the top, there were some very, very classy bike riders who clearly not necessarily weren't ill prepared, but maybe didn't expect. And I think just the pace from the off, because riders are used to kind of that slow bedding in process, aren't they? And staying within the comfort of the peloton, there was no opportunity to do that at all today.
Well, here's a thought then. Could teams conceivably learn things about racing from the Hammer Series that then translates back into more, conventional, familiar road racing? Because, if you can see the damage and the devastation you can do on a lumpy parkour, and, let's face it, a lot of road races are, and then, actually, could this be a format that we see?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, whether any of the big race organisers of the 3 Grand Tours in particular take any note of the format of racing here. I guess, conceivably they could put in huge bonus seconds over the first mountains of the day in the Grand Tours, so that there is a big advantage to going in the early breakaway as opposed to just trying to go for a stage win. I guess that could be potential as we go forward. But I think initially it's just interesting to see the way that this race here pans out. We've got the climber stage done and dusted. Movistar have taken the spoils there. But if we look at tomorrow's race, we've got some phenomenal sprinters here going to play their part in it. We've got Caleb Ewan, we've got Fernando Gaviria and Andre Greipel, who between them won 6 stages of the Giro d'Italia, just finished last Sunday. Giacomo Nizzolo, Dylan Groenewegen also here, Danny Van Poppel, we've got Viviani. There's a hell of a lot of very fast riders in the group who could take the victory tomorrow. But then again today, although sorry, just reliving the crash and tailgate. If you look back at today, there's a lot of very good climbers in the race who we didn't see at all. So it's not necessarily the best sprinters who we'll see at the front tomorrow, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, and I think we could see the teams maybe with that don't have good sprinters just go on the offensive and force the sprinters teams to chase, which, as you said, all of us said before, is going to make it very hard for the sprinters teams, because they're going to have to commit a lot of resource to kind of bringing things back and not necessarily teeing the riders up for those 8 sprints that we're going to be faced with tomorrow. So I think it's it's a recipe for something that's going to be very interesting. And it's, again, tomorrow is going to be something that we've never seen before as well. I mean, the format, how direct sportives, how the riders kind of cope with the various kind of strategies, all of which is completely new, again, is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, I wonder whether we could see some alliances between teams. You know, so could it? You could imagine the pure sprinters being on the back foot a little bit if it is such an aggressive race. You know, maybe it would favour, well, a pure sprinter like Elia Viviani, who we know has form in points races. But what happens if two teams get together and instead of teams of 5, you've effectively got, you know, 6 riders that can control the race, and then maybe you do get that slightly more controlled format, because we've got a night that, you know, the teams' DSs will be chatting away. Maybe that's something to watch out for tomorrow as well.
Yeah. I mean, that is a potential situation, isn't it? That tonight Orica Scott talk with Quickstep Floors, talk with Lotte Soudal, and said, look, we've got the best 3 sprinters here. Why don't we work together with our total of 12 domestiques to keep things together for our best sprinters? But we've never seen Caleb Ewan, Fernando Gaviria or Andre Greipel have to do more than 1 sprint in a race, really. And that, I think, is the biggest difference in the dynamics between this and a standard road race, is that it's not just one effort and one huge, monstrous amount of power towards the finish line at 70 km per hour. It's, you know, tomorrow going to be 9 efforts across the finish line, and I think that could favour a different type of sprinter. Than
I think you're right. I think the only analogy I can use is perhaps the points competition in the Tour de France over the last few years, where there's been a bigger leaning towards points stacked at hotspot sprints points in the race, meaning that riders, you know, who are eyeing the green jersey have had to go for it. But certainly not 8 or 9 times in such a short space of time. You have maybe 2 or 3 hotspot sprints spaced over 160 kilometres. It's a very, very different proposition than sprints every 12k, where you're looking at not just repetitively sprinting, but also repetitively using your lead-out train as well. So it drains everybody, and all of that provides opportunity for teams without sprinters to go on the offensive and go over the top. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, which team then is going to have, or which sprinter is going to have the most number of wattage bazookas in their back pocket then? So if it's not about one almighty bazooka, it's about like a whole jersey full of them. Who's going to take it?
I think you've got to look at Sky with Viviani and Van Poppel.
I think so. I think even Dibben.
But Lotto with De Boucherer and obviously the gorilla himself, Andre Greipel, and Marina Hofland. Yeah, they've got 3 very, very good sprint propositions as well. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And now, of course, Trek as well. They've got, Bonifacio's moved across to Bahrain, but they need to score some points. Well, but no, there's lots of good sprinters here.
I guess we will find out tomorrow, won't we? I think we're going to wrap up today's coverage of the inaugural Hammer Series from Limburg. They'll be in the same region tomorrow doing the sprint, but of course on a much flatter, slightly longer circuit, slightly longer stage, but it should be run off in the same amount of time, around about 2 hours of very intense racing. So watch out for the best sprinters in the world coming together tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have got over our technical difficulties and we'll be live on air on both Facebook and YouTube at 14:45 Central European time. That is, what is that, 1:45 in the UK, and work that out for wherever else you are in the world. But for myself, Matt and Si, thanks for joining us today, and we hope to see you again tomorrow.